You're listening to Musical Talk at the Edinburgh Fringe. Hello and welcome to Musical Talk. I'm Thos Ribbits, formerly described by the woman in John Lewis in Edinburgh as a very nice man. And I'm here at the Edinburgh Fringe 2011. And so I hope through the medium of these radio programmes today and in the next few weeks, will you be? Because I hope to transport you to that fantastic arts festival, the biggest in the world, of drama, comedy, music and musicals. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's also, by default, the biggest musical theatre festival in the world. And we at Musical Talk can take you through the A to Z. In the next few weeks, you'll be hearing in detail about the following shows: About Gilbert Before Sullivan, Apply Within, Chin Chung, Evil, the musical, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, A Celebration in Song, Four Puffs and a Piano, Hitler, the musical, Home Infusion, The Hot Mikado, I Love You Because, Jet Set Go, Little Shop of Homos, Miracles at Short Notice, Mr. Ben, The Extraordinary Adventures of an Ordinary Man, The Oxford Gargoyles, The Ring of Stones, Sentimental Journey, The Story of Doris Day, Songs to Make You Smile, Sunday in the Park with George, Sweet Charity, The Improvised Musical, the definitive article you'll notice, and therefore under T in my list there, Uglies Do Edinburgh, Wasted Love, and The Zoo. There we have it, a complete A to Z of the musicals you'll be hearing about in the next few weeks in details. And so that doesn't include some of the shows we'll be mentioning in passing. Well, I hope that whets your appetite for today's programme and for the many to come. In the background you can hear just some of the atmosphere from the street in the Royal Mile, in case you don't know Edinburgh, and I hope that you will get to know it soon. There's a long road, Holyrood House, which is the royal seat in Edinburgh, to Edinburgh Castle, one at either end, and it's called the Royal Mile. During the festival this is closed to traffic and becomes, if you like, the focal point of the festival. Everybody congregates there. That includes performers who have got shows on and they might be doing extracts from their shows, as well as handing out flyers in order to advertise them, members of the public going along to drink the atmosphere and pick up a flyer and see some free shows, buskers who are attracted to the crowds. Sometimes they have shows on as well, sometimes they're just there because there are crowds and they put on a free show. And in the background you can hear three fabulous people performing what can only be described as sort of European folk music. A double bass, an accordionist and a violinist. Very good too. Now let's get down to the business in hand. Today's episode of Musical Talk, 252 if you're counting, is particularly long. It's a bonus episode, it's a bumper episode. It is, I hope, a brilliant episode. And remember, each of the shows that you hear about in today's episode are, at the time of broadcast, still actually on in Edinburgh. All of today's shows can be seen to the very end of the festival, or at least to the day or two beforehand. So you've still got a chance to see them. So please go along to Ed Fringe, that's the website, edfringe.com, and see how you can book tickets, or see if any of these shows tickle your fancy to the point where you want to go along. I have to tell you that every year the week I spend in Edinburgh is the happiest week of the year for me. This year I actually spent 8 days in that very fine city and I saw 45 shows. Not all of them were musicals, but most of them were. Well, let's get on with the proceedings. As I say, it's a bumper episode. Do try and stay on to the very end if you can, because we finish off today with a fantastic interview which is both hilarious and genuinely insightful in a strangely existential way, which, as it relates to pantomime, you might think is slightly unusual, but do hang around for that. That's a brilliant, happy, funny interview. But to begin with, here's an interview with the composer of a 5-star show. The show's called Apply Within, and I and new Musical Talk presenter David Kingsmill caught up with him at the Pleasance, one of the many venues at this year's Edinburgh Fringe. You're listening to Musical Talk.
My name is James Mikolos, and I've been writing for 10-15 years. I'm based in London, a singing teacher at Guildhall and London Studio Centre.
And you've written Apply Within, a new musical here up in Edinburgh.
Yep.
Composer, lyricist, which are you?
I've co-written it with one other guy called Adam English, and we're credited as everything. He's written a little bit more of the book, perhaps, and I've written a little bit more of the music and lyrics.
Oh, right, okay.
But it's a co-credit.
Yes, of course, absolutely.
Of course.
Both equally important. And that's what counts.
Absolutely.
Yes, so that's copyright sorted.
Yeah. All the legality. I used to be a lawyer.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I see. Right. Now, Apply Within. Do you want to give us just a couple of sentences what it's about, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of this really, if I may say, fantastic show?
Well, thank you. It's really about one man's quest for a new job. So, in a nutshell, top of show, guy gets made redundant, rest of show, guy tries to find a new job. All things interview, really. It's kind of a little bit like a review show. The plot line is fairly thin. It's one guy trying to find a new job with lots of different takes on interviews. So,
well, I was going to say, now, forgive me, it's horribly topical, so I'm going to ask, when did you first get the idea for this? Any time after the credit crunch?
2008, September, October, when things just started to get bad, we thought about it. As a writer, I'm always writing ideas down, and when I finish one project, I tend to look through my notebook of what I'm going to do next. And I had an idea many years ago, and it was originally called CV23, and it was going to be a series of very short plays.
23
of them.
I can see where you're going.
Yeah, you could see that. So I just saw that idea, and I thought I liked it. The credit crunch kicked in. Talked to my co-writer who we worked on something 10 years ago, a screenplay we wrote together 10 years ago, and we've always tried to work with each other again, and it just all intersected around about the start of 2009.
So it's been a fair while in gestation, really.
Yeah, we took a year, because we were busy and we were doing other things, it took about a year.
Damn that real life.
Oh God, earning money. Yeah. I just long to be a writer and get paid for it, to be honest.
Well, be careful what you wish for, because only half of that may come true.
Well, yeah, the wrong half, who knows. But we spent 2009 writing it, and then start of 2010 it was in a decent enough shape. We got some singers in to play with the songs, and then around June time we workshopped it.
Yeah.
With a view to doing it at a couple of theatres in London, that both of which shall remain nameless because they messed us around so much and they were so disorganised.
Poor administration in theatre.
Well, you wouldn't believe it, especially in fringe theatre.
I'm speechless.
Yeah. So it came to 2011, and what I tend to do is go, right, balls to this.
Take control.
Let's go and put it on somewhere, and I thought about Edinburgh, and here we are.
Splendid. So really, it was in a tangible form about a year ago.
Yeah, not much has changed since about September, the rewrites after the first workshop. We did another one around April time, and of course things have been trimmed down. Mainly the changes that have been made were to accommodate it into the hour slots.
Yes.
So it ran at about an hour 30.
Oh right, so it's a sizable show.
Yeah.
The group wants to put it on.
Yeah, we definitely. I think it's a one-act show.
Yeah.
There's a place where we think it could split, but actually we'd like to go straight through with it. I love you.
You're sometimes doing that with Roadshow at the moment, so you're in good
company.
Well,
indeed, and I love you. You're perfect now. Change
thank you.
Was always. We've been having that with a couple of things here, but I move on. That'll take too long to explain that whole story. But where was I?
We were talking about being one act, a 90-minute.
I Love You, You're Perfect was a bit of a frame of reference. And certainly we were selling it a little bit at one stage as like the job equivalent of I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change. What that does for relationships, we do a bit for jobs, with a bit more of a plot line, I guess.
Well, I was going to talk about the book, actually, funny enough, because I think you've underplayed it a bit. I mean, you're right, it's faintly episodic. But it does have some narrative, because you've managed to concoct from that possibility that several people are going for the same job, that they meet each other over and over again, which actually gives you a sort of character arc, if you like, at least to a degree. So I think that's quite clever, because that's it's in the person of the piece rather than in the writing of the piece, almost.
Yeah, it's nice, and we were happy with that as a slightly different way of developing a relationship, a love story, or a like story.
Yes.
As we were trying to veer away from the real mawkish stuff that you tend to get sometimes in musicals. I know like song is as close to cheesy commercial musical theatre as I guess, and Where To From Here perhaps. Those two right in the middle of the show, and then we can play around it. But
you know, I think that gives you a truly British voice, if you don't mind me saying. By not going straight in for the I love you, and where do you go from there? I mean, there isn't a great deal beyond that. You know, after that, you're really just reiterating. Whereas the "I like" is a world of possibility. It's a gentler word, but it doesn't say any less intense. It just says that intensity is played out across a wider spectrum, I think, if you don't mind me saying. That's the way I read it anyway.
Well, thank you, because I'm glad, because that's exactly what we're after. We had a review that said the ending is completely predictable, and I said to my cast, I said, well, so that he was going to sacrifice his job for her, and then they're going to go out for a drink and see what might happen. You predicted that ending. Because we like the fact it's open, and a lot of people have come in and said that's great that he doesn't get the girl necessarily. Let's see what happens, and off he goes back into the world of job hunting. You don't know when he's going to get his job, but at least he feels better about himself. And
there's also a lovely parallel, actually. I think you make quite early on that song about where they're ostensibly talking about what you do in a job, and I know what to say, but I can remember it 24 hours later, which is as true about dates and making friends in the first instance. So, I mean, that's that beautiful parallel with conducting interviews and meeting people is fluent throughout, I think.
Well, that's very interesting. You mentioned that scene, because that is one that really shifts day to day, and whether the audience pick it up or not. Sometimes you get this massive reaction of and laughing, and then other times it's just they think it's all to do with the job, or at least there's no demonstration of they're tuned into the double meaning. Yes, it's very interesting, that section.
Well, in which case they're idiots. It's clear as day as far as I'm concerned.
Good.
No, but honestly, that's what's lovely about it, because it is, forgive me, it's there are layers of subtlety in this and double meaning. All the way through from the personal relationship to what the lyrics are telling us about the circumstances we're seeing. That Brechtian dislocation, if you like.
Well, I think my co-writer's probably on the Brechtian side. He's much more intense than me. But thank you. We were going through all of this, thinking about the life versus interview parallel, and how we, through the vehicle of an interview, we can talk about life.
So let's ask you: have you been on many interviews? How much research did you do for this?
Thankfully, well, there's a guy actually who is a bit of a consultant's not the right word. He's an actor that does these role play, but they're all interview based. So I don't exactly know what his formal title is, but he basically empowers people through acting out scenarios with them and helping their interview technique. And he was great with potential scenarios we could throw into the script. I haven't interviewed for a job in a long time. I've been at Guildhall for 5 years now, and Studio
Long
Centre.
may that continue.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a great place to be. But when I was younger, yes, there were some horrendous interviews I used to put myself up for. The kind of interview where the person talking to you just totally disinterested in what you're saying. The moment you walk in, it's for whatever reason doesn't like you, or has already chosen somebody, or would rather be somebody else, and you just feel like
sometimes tell.
Yeah, like Sophie did. She arrived and just went, walks off. I've had those.
Did you? Please, David. No.
I was going to say, did you find that having obviously you've got all sorts of different characters as the different interviewers? Did you find that was quite a good point of reference for you for creating different styles of songs? There's quite a lot of musical variety in the piece. Yeah,
the evolution of to be honest, Adam and I. Adam used to act a lot, and he's quite a good character actor. So we had ideas for where these interviewers could go, but really it was in the rehearsal process where the cast, those two that play, Ian and Kate, who play the two multi-role parts, they were the ones that really drew on a lot of past experience to develop the accents of the characters.
Well, there was nice delineation all the way through, actually. You could tell when they were doing someone else. Even sometimes down to bumping up the hair.
Yes.
There was some fantastic hair stuff going on.
Well, Kate's fantastic, in all the different roles she plays. I think she does a fab job with, she goes off as one and very quickly comes in with, "Oh, hello, Joe," the case of mistaken identity. And the one where she has this she's developed this really lovely tick as it's carried on, this kind of, I don't know if you could see that, the one where it's in the fast pace, it's a knockout section. "Tell me a little bit about yourself," and She does this chewing
Sucks
thing.
on
It's hilarious, but I don't know if many people can see it, but I love her for
I
it.
rather liked her German consultant, not based on your consultant of jobs, I hope.
No,
Good.
no.
Nothing libelous there, then.
No, I wonder, as that evolves, I wonder whether the German is too obvious. And so one critic said something like, "Oh, could we please have a German character where they don't do a Nazi salute? We get it." And I kind of understand where they're coming from. I quite like the fact that maybe the tone is Germanic, but you do it as maybe like a Jewish New Yorker or something, you know, like.
You want to be careful. There's a lot of Hitler stuff around this year, isn't there?
Yeah.
In fairness, though, I have to say, no, I don't think there's any problem with that German. It's a heightened performance. If you were playing it dead straight, then
yes.
perhaps that might be a bit much. But you know, I quite like the fact actually that she's obviously repressed sexually. I think that's rather more interesting going on there.
Yeah,
and, you know.
yeah.
And you also have what appears. I mean, the central character is interesting because the actor. Forget me, his name.
John Joe Flynn.
I hope you won't mind me saying this. He looks on the face of it to be an alpha male, and yet the performance is very far from being an alpha male. He's quite.
He's a gentle
placid.
soul, is John.
Yes,
He is. He is.
Absolutely, and so I think there's a quite interesting dichotomy going on there as well. But, you know, you've got someone who looks like they're bigger, butcher, and stronger and bolder than the character they're portraying, but you absolutely buy into that character all the way through. And I quite like the fact he's a little overwhelmed by his German instructress, shall we say? Yeah.
Yeah, he had to, we really worked on scaling it back because there came a point where he was getting too angry with the world, and I think when Joe gets angry, then you lose your audience. You know, you need to be a little bit endearing, as I think Joe needs to be.
He's got to be a bit of an everyman.
Yes.
I mean, and that is the thing about the experience of being interviewed. I mean, most of us have done it at one stage or several. By the way, can I also say, as someone who in his speech marks, real life close speech marks, is an interviewer, I also appreciated the song from that side of the table.
Yes, glad.
Because you did touch on many of the things. It is what people don't realise. You spend a day hearing exactly the same thing over and over. You know, once you've had that first conversation with the first interviewer, you've had the same conversation 8-10 times. So thank you very much indeed.
Well, you're welcome. We were talking at the summer school actually that's where I met David a couple of years ago, and we do a kind of debrief, and they always ask questions about getting into drama school. And one of the things we've noticed recently, and God knows who's putting this out there, is the trend for repeating the question that's just been asked. So, for example, we'd ask a question to an auditionee, and so, I don't know, so what's your favourite dramatist or something? And they'll go, what's my favourite dramatist?
Thinking time.
Yeah, exactly, thinking time. But it's like, don't do it, just does our heads in. It's like, well done, you remembered the question I've just asked you, just answer the question. Doesn't matter if you hesitate slightly. Bugbears roll on, even in my real life closed brackets.
I must ask you then, the creative process for you, how do you grapple with a song? What do you do with your blank piece of paper in the morning? How do you stop it being a blank piece of paper in the evening?
I think, I don't know, you might be able to guess from seeing that apply within that I'm perhaps more lyrically driven than musically. I would probably say in what I write, I'm 70% lyrically led.
I love that, so thank you.
Good.
Yes.
Good. So I'll start
a man of words.
a line or two first, and then maybe that'll turn into a verse or two, and then I'll start to tinker around with the melody. Or, just tinker around with the piano, I come across a little motif. It's very rare for me to write something musically. It's almost to let myself go, I like that, let's keep it evolve. It's very rare for me to do one completely.
So you're not a noodler at the piano, as they say?
Not really, no. I usually, it's something I hear in my head walking down the street randomly, or...
Do you carry a notebook?
I do carry a notebook,
very
yes.
Well,
yeah. Edinburgh is amazing for it. And what I have to do in Edinburgh is, when I've seen something I really like, I kind of I have a code, so I know that I'll be plagiarising it. If it's original, I'll write it down, but if not, I kind of write the reference of who said it, so I don't think, oh, that's mine when I revisit my notebook.
Right, you had to give yourself footnotes.
Yeah, I give myself footnotes just in case. The things I like and write down in my notebook of other people, they just strike me as being quite original. So I want to make sure that I'm aware that it's off somebody else if I need to adapt it. So it sounds like it's my work and not theirs. But it's just such a rich vein of inspiration.
But your words are very good, if you don't mind me saying. There was one song in particular where every now and then you would throw in a couplet with more syllables in it than the previous lines had led you to believe were going to be there. And that was rather splendid, because it didn't jar or jolt the song. It just saying, oh, hang on, oh, splendid, oh, gosh, internal rhymes, and here we are, and humpity bump. So, nice bit of rhythm work.
I think if you were talking to my cast now, especially in Economical with the Facts, the CV doctoring song, we would probably change that slightly, because they want to kill me at the end.
That's a sign of a good composer.
Where you've got this...
make it easy for the devils.
If you're embellishing the facts, all of that, with truth sat in economy, you'll find you have a bonhomie, with forgery, a very, very highly entertaining and a very, very fun way to read it. And when they're dancing, and actually Ian was doing a harmony, a very, very high tenor harmony, which we had to scrap, because he was like, "Are you going to kill me if I have to do that 27 times?"
So, you're not a fan of Gilbert and Sullivan by any chance, are you?
A little bit.
If when I say this, I pay you the compliment. I'm getting Gilbert in, at least in. There's a bouquet of Gilbert around, if you pardon the expression.
Yes.
They probably need to rebury him, clearly.
Thank you. Yes, I'm no real expert on Gilbert and Sullivan, but they certainly have a little influence.
The dexterity, I think, is what I'm trying
to say.
Yes,
the kind of rhythm of the words.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You've set quite a few challenges for your actors in this, because, I mean, as well as the lyrical things, you've got points in this where literally, you've already mentioned this, an actor will walk off and 5 seconds later they come back on as somebody completely different. Yeah. How do you go about working out how those are going to fit into the piece, and how manageable they're going to be, and so on?
Well, I think going back to talking about the reduction of the book, I think some of those moments have actually become, I think, quite charming, because you can tell apply with it. It's not polished. It's rough around the edges in its current state. Thank you. You should be my PR. You're really really boosting my confidence here.
It's a great piece.
Thank you. Some of those things where actually there's bits that have been removed. For example, the scene where the mistaken identity, where Ian crosses, around the back, and then just comes stage left down and turns. There's actually a scene there where Ian gives these model hilarious answers, like perfect answers, and the interviewer finds them absolutely hilarious. But thinking about it and the way that's done and the kind of follow-on, we actually think now, well, do we actually need to see him succeed in the interview? He goes in, and then we know in those little answers, oh, well, actually it came in from YouTube. Yeah, I think I could do it justice. And then in you go, what happened back there? And I quite like that. I think those... So doing our own creativity down, as it were, a lot of those came out of the necessity of cutting, rather than, let's just quickly shift it.
But it's also suggests that your audience is intelligent enough to fill in the gaps. Forgive me, if it had been a point-to-point story, you probably wouldn't have had quite the responses you would have had. I mean, as you say, the throwaways let you know everything you need to know about what's happening in that scene.
Yeah.
So, forgive me, you're as wise in cutting as you are in adding. So,
yeah.
Editing is, if you don't mind, almost the most important skill, I think.
That's it, and it's great that we had so much material to cut it down, to then potentially build it up in a different way. What was I going to say to you then? Something to do with all of that. Editing. Oh yes, my co-writer, he is a screenwriter. That's what he's spent the last 10 years doing, whereas I've always been more involved in theatre. And so we have these very interesting fights where he is more show, don't tell, cut, and the episodic nature, as you mentioned, I think is more down to him wanting to keep things moving, whereas I am more tell, don't show. Come on, let the song do the work, let the song breathe a bit. And thankfully, I get my way more than him, because I say, look, I do this, I teach musical theatre, you don't know anything about musicals, trust me.
But obviously the dynamic tension works really well, because obviously by having, if you don't mind me saying, if he pushes the book and you pushing the score, then actually, you're creating a condensed brew, a stew of delight.
Yes, I think it's really interesting having somebody whose skill lies in very, very economical visual stuff. Although sometimes I think he's too brutal. Sometimes he's just, no, show that, lose that line. And part of the fun of immediacy is letting those just hitting the audience with some funny words. And
Well, you have to have a little bit of meat on the bone, otherwise
exactly.
You might as well just email people the storyboard.
Yeah, that's it. There'll be some very minimalist, strange Scandinavian theatre or something.
White faces, black clothing and nothing else.
Yeah, that's it.
So where would you like this? Well, how can people see it now in Edinburgh, and where would you like it to go afterwards?
Well, we're on at the Pleasance Beside till the 29th every day.
Till the bitter end.
Till the bitter end, killing my cast, no days off.
All right.
Make me back some money, please, any money.
And then straight into the Priory.
Straight into the Priory, yes, we'll be doing it at the Priory. It'll be we are going to, it's definitely the start. It's been directed by Ian Good, who directed the Hairspray that West End and then touring. And he...
Beautiful choreography, by the way, actually. Surprising, actually, the amount. And how absolutely appropriate it was for the piece. You know, it really, when it's funny, it lifted it up another level again. So that was great.
Well, it's so fascinating hearing you say. Again, it's great that you say that because we've had such random opinions about the choreography.
Really?
Some say it's too big for the space. It's wrong for the songs. They really did it well today. And again, like I say, you 5-star audience really brought it out of them, which was great. But the choreographer is Grant Murphy, who's currently in Shrek. He's appearing in it, and he's not the choreographer for Shrek, but the two of them gave their services for free because they believed, I guess, in the originality and the Britishness of the piece as well, which, you know, I'm so passionate about it. If I had more money, I would love to do kind of what the Soho did, but with musical theatre. That is one of my big aspirations, is to do a rep musical theatre, get shows in for several weeks, and then keep them moving.
If you manage that, please let me know.
I will. If I can just in the next few years get some kind of financial backing from something. So.
But is the show going on further after Edinburgh?
Well, we're gonna regroup in September. We're gonna look at the full length version, really dissect this one, figure out what worked, what didn't. Write some new stuff. We feel like Sophie at the moment, although Lizzie does a lovely job with Sophie, feel there's more to her. She's still, perhaps, she's the most underwritten, I think. The multi-role guys get all the fun. Joe is Joe, and he's obviously carrying the whole show. Sophie, I think she needs her own song, rather than being tagged into like song, and where to from here. So we'll work on bringing her to life a bit more. But then, yes, we're definitely going to look at a London venue.
So it could have Afterlife.
Afterlife. I mean, in a dream world. Second career, second potential job getting. Where are we thinking about? In a dream world, I think arts theatre would be lovely.
Actually, in a dream world, the Palladium.
Well, it's too big. You know.
I don't know how big your dreams are, but they should be bigger.
I think the Wyndham's really for the show. The Wyndham's, I think, is probably realistically the biggest theatre we'd put it in. But even that's probably a dream too far. We'll see.
The arts would be fab.
The arts would be lovely, and there was one other, I don't know. But yeah, we're going to carry on anyway.
Please do stay in touch, and I'll just conclude by saying thank you. I thought it was a fantastic show. I would actually call it an exuberant must-see, and I'd give you 5 stars for musical.
Well, thanks, Foss. Lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
You're listening to Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast. And that was James Mikolos, one of the people behind that 5-star show, Apply Within. Really, if you get a chance to see it, do go along. It's a marvellous, marvellous piece. And from one 5-star show to another. We're going to now talk about Jet Set Go. Now, you may remember that Jet Set Go has been featured on this programme before, and you're absolutely right. The composers, that's Jake Brunger and Pippa Cleary, Jake does the lyrics and Pippa does the music, brought Jet Set Go as a brand new musical to Edinburgh about 3 years ago. And what a splendid show it was. We gave it 5 stars then. And since then, they've gone on to great things. Keep your eye out for Brunger and Cleary, because they're certainly going places. And indeed, they proved that when they followed up the next year with the Great British Soap Opera. Another great musical, absolutely infused with their quirky and melodic sense of humour and music. Marvellous, marvellous shows, both of them. Well, imagine my delight when I discovered that Jet Set Go was coming back to Edinburgh this year in a brand new production, this time from Cambridge University. Well, Wild Horses couldn't have kept me from that show. It was one of the shows in the schedule that for me was an absolutely must-see. And having seen it, I can say that's still the case. So, let's meet the director and the musical director of this production of Brunger and Cleary's fantastic Jet Set Go.
Hello, my name is Flo Carr and I'm the director of Jet Set Go.
Hi, I'm Ollie Rue and I'm the MD of Jet Set Go. If MD, musical director, people don't know that.
And it's the same Jet Set Go. You're not in two rival productions.
It's the same Jet Set Go.
Jet Set Go.
Should we also say that we're also both co-producing it as...
Yeah.
So you are the two who rule, essentially.
Yes,
Pretty much everything
yes.
is yours.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good, that's good. And it's nice actually to have a second voice to bounce off and blame.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's also useful. But when I make the joke about it being the same Jet Set Go, it is also, this is a brand new production of the Fringe classic Jet Set Go by Brunger and Cleary, as I think we now professionally have to call them.
Fantastic.
How did Jet Set Go how did you light upon it?
Well, Pippa Cleary went to my school, and she was a couple of years ahead of me. And I remember hearing about her having written a musical and going to the Fringe, and I was just coming up to the Fringe to visit. So I thought I'd go and check it out and see, see what it was like. And I was so impressed that I think I saw it 3 times in Edinburgh, and then in both the London venues. So I became
you got one more of me.
a bit of a
twice in Edinburgh and both the London
a really
venues.
sort of hardcore Jet Set Go fan. And I that was just before I went to Cambridge, and I always sort of thought how well it would go down in Cambridge, and it took quite a while for it to become available, and when it finally did, I thought now's my chance to put it on in Cambridge.
So when did this idea first? When did you actually get your hands on it as a property?
With a lot of pushing in about November, December 2010.
Oh right, so you've had about 8 months to get it shipshape. If that's entirely the wrong metaphor.
But there were about a year or so when you were trying to actually push for the rights.
Yeah, but we put it on in Cambridge to begin with. We did a run in February in Cambridge at the ADC Theatre.
Very swiftly.
Yeah.
With same cast?
Yeah, except for 3 of them who sadly couldn't make it to the Fringe.
My story's slightly different in that I hadn't actually heard of Jet Set Go until I met Flo. But when I went to Cambridge, I did quite a lot of music stuff at school, and I've been playing the piano since I was 5 and stuff like that. So when I got to Cambridge, I thought, I want to really get involved with something and do some musical direction. And I saw I was looking for MD at the time, and Jet Set Go was one of them. So Flo interviewed me, and I think I just went from there, and I really shared the passion that she had, and here we are now.
I just realised she was such a reliable, good person to work with that we became co-producers for the Edinburgh Fringe run.
Well, let's find out if there's any truth in that. Will you co-produce again?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yes, marvellous. And you even looked at each other as you said, you weren't lying. Marvellous. No, honestly, there's a buoyancy there.
I think it works really well, and we were really happy with how the shows come together.
Very happy.
So how do you approach a show which you know so intimately, and it's still fresh as well, so it's really only had its original run, and then the German Street was the only time it's been recast so far. You know, as a director, what can you bring to it? And a musical director,
Well, I think that's something that was quite difficult for me, because there were so many, because I'd seen the other show so many times, and there were little bits of it that I was so sort of attached to and thought worked so well, that was something that I really had to think about when I was sort of setting about planning how I direct and how I direct the cast. I was very kind of aware of the bits that I thought worked and didn't work and things like that. But actually, when it came to it, I think we liked to have a sort of very company style approach, and we really let the actors kind of interpret it in their own ways. And I think the actors brought a lot to it, which at first I was like, oh no, it's not like how it was the first time. But I mean, I think certain characters we really interpreted in quite different ways.
Very much so, yes.
And as directors, we didn't want to sort of have this overreigning control. We wanted to keep it a very relaxed atmosphere, and just, I mean, such a funny show. You don't need to have be serious all the time. And I think just getting input from the cast and the band and everything just really helped make it what it is.
Organic fusion, then.
Exactly,
yes.
exactly.
So you set the parameters, but you allow people to explore and interact as well, because comedy is best generated naturally, isn't it?
And I think
very funny as well.
I mean, at the end of the day, I've directed a few things before university, but I'm not a professional director. So I think anyone's view and ideas is probably just going to be just as good as any of mine. So that's.
Have you directed a musical before?
No, I haven't.
So this is your first musical as well?
Yeah, this is.
And also mine as well.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Well, that was my next question.
Yeah, it was my first.
Well, you both
first
stepped
musical,
up to the plate.
We both have experience in theatre and music, but
you're not absolute amateurs.
We're not absolute amateurs, but
absolute beginners. Amateur musical. No, we won't talk about it.
But I think it just really goes to show that just anyone can do it, really, if you have the enthusiasm and the passion for it.
And I think the talent of that cast, because it's one that it's sometimes quite difficult in Cambridge to cast musicals, because there's a lot of musicals going on, and they were. I mean, I think there were 4 or 5 musicals the term we were doing Jet Set Go, but the talent we still managed to attract. We were so thrilled with.
Well, your cast is sorry. Well, I was going to say your cast is excellent.
I was going to say even because 3 people had to drop out before we came up to the Fringe, but we managed to replace them, and there were bits that they didn't do the same, but just they were absolutely brilliant, and they helped to kind of keep it fresh as we were rehearsing for Ed Fringe, because we were worried that people would sort of be like, oh, we've done this already in Cambridge, it'll be an easy run, but I think that having the new people just really helped, bring it back to life.
What you've also done, if you don't mind me saying, is actually proven that the show is in its own right a classic show, because it can be interpreted in different ways, you can put different actors in, they'll bring something different, and it still works.
Definitely.
And that's what the delight for me was, because I also, like you, I think, we're groupies, I suspect, in that
definitely.
sense. I've enjoyed the piece so much over the years. It was one of my must-sees for my trip to Edinburgh. In fact, I've rearranged my week slightly to make sure that it was in my span of being here. Because you weren't on at the beginning, were you?
No.
You've only been recent. So I wanted to see this, and I'm absolutely glad that I did, because it warrants everything. It's a brilliant production, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But it's proven as a cast iron comedy musical.
It's fantastic.
It's just everything you want from a show, and especially a Fringe show. It's light-hearted, it's fun, it's got good music, it's just what a musical should be. Really.
I think both of us are very much in the sort of business of just making people laugh and making people happy. I think there's so much kind of pretentious theatre going on, and people trying to sort of prove a point or like make some kind of statement, and I think our statement is just have a good time.
And at the end of the day, if people come out of the theatre and they're smiling and they're happy, that's what puts a smile on our face. I mean, in Cambridge, there are people coming out saying, oh, I had an essay crisis going in, but I came out and I'm smiling and I don't care anymore. And that's what really made it for me.
The cast was so happy that they got recognised around Cambridge all the time, by other students and things.
That's very impressive.
Yeah.
Tell me, how did you get your cast? And how do you? I have to say this. There are 2 roles at least have to undress. It's not, well, some people like doing that and some people don't.
Well, actually, the role of Ryan was an interesting one, because he really was the only person who auditioned who we felt could have played the role at
Just
all.
for our listeners, I ought to say that Ryan is the flamboyant, overtly gay character.
Yeah.
When I say overtly gay, I mean gay stereotype character, the tight pants, and indeed the song says so.
Yeah, and I think Jack Mosdale, who plays that part, I think he came to the audition slightly with that part in mind.
Oh, right.
And we just thought he'd be absolutely fantastic for it, and he was the only person we recalled for it.
He bought his pants in advance.
Yeah, but he almost had to drop out because he was doing another show.
They
and
are tight. That can happen.
Really,
you don't mean that. Right,
yeah, so...
vulgar, I'm so sorry.
Also, he was very comfortable with the idea.
Yeah.
He didn't mind at all.
Well, he played that, because obviously there's this lovely scene in the bedroom where the 2 stewards, one who does fancy the other and one who doesn't, Richard and Ryan. Ryan takes his shirt off with such force and aplomb. He'd got an immediate laugh. It was a kind of, oh, here I am. But seriously, that hadn't been done like that, quite so overtly like that. And I thought that's a good, that's someone thinking their part through.
No, definitely.
And your lady parts. I might take that bit out, sorry. That wasn't intended, I do apologise. And the female roles. And the female roles are a very varied selection, aren't you? You've got self-assured, you've got hot Latin passion.
Yeah.
Is your hot Latin passionate lady hot Latin and passionate?
No, well, she's actually...
Not.
She's Greek.
Right.
Half American, half Greek, I think. Yeah.
Well, in her audition, she did the scene with Jim, with the bit where he falls down, and she just got so into
fake
it.
heart attack.
Yeah, and she did the accent just spot on straight away, and she just had us cracking up.
I think it's more about the commitment to the role that she gave. She really went for it. But what I think is great about the female roles in each of the four girls that we have is all four of them have the most fantastic voices, but in very different styles of voices.
Definitely.
Like we have a choral scholar, we have kind of very musical theatre background of people, and I think that really kind of each role requires a very different voice, and I think
it makes it interesting to watch because they're all just completely different characters, and they really define the roles, I think.
But I like the fact they've got different voice, sort of timbre and style as well, which presumably helps delineate them as well as their acting.
Definitely.
I have to ask, from a musical point of view, what's it like coming to
the Fringe?
Well, a Cleary score, I was going to say. Because I tell you what, I'd like to know what you think her influences are. I've already told her what I think they are, so I can ask this question.
Oh God, I think she has quite a lot of influences from lots of different musicals.
Definitely a bit of Wicked in it.
Exactly, definitely a bit of Wicked. Definitely, I think there's a bit of Wicked. Just in the Dance With Me at the end, there's obviously, what's the show that's from?
My Fair Lady.
Yeah, that's the one. I think that's quite a funny play on that song. But yeah, I think her style is great. I think she really has got so many varied songs, and I think with a lot of musicals they can have a sort of a very monotonous style that just sort of stays the same for all, and I think that's what's so great about her score.
She's eclectic, but integrated.
Definitely. But then again, you get these these bits with the dun 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 in the first song that come back, and that just it's just so catchy. And the thing I would say is that when you first see it, Pippa Cleary likes to write in F sharp, which is I don't know how musical you are, but as a key,
my listeners are more musical than I am.
As a key that has the most sharps, and it's quite an awkward key to play in. And I even spoke to Pippa about this, and she said, "Yeah, it's my favourite key." So there's nothing we can do.
It gives her edge.
It's definitely.
I think she's got a beautiful melodic voice.
Oh,
I really
definitely.
do. But I was going to say, because I think there are Gershwin chords all over the place. You may or may not have a view on that.
I think I agree with that, actually. Yeah.
And there was several songs in it, but there are songs in it. I just lie back and I think, do you know this? It's got modern dialogue, and that's where Jake comes in and he gives it that modern edge. And Pippa's by no means skulking in the past, and she is absolutely her own woman in terms of composing. But it has the classic beauty, I think, of a 1930s music.
Definitely.
I mean, if you could write Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers into it, it's an ensemble piece, so you couldn't. But it fits absolutely in that sort of 30 genre for me, anyway.
Especially songs like Dance With Me, it's just an absolute classic musical Broadway number, and you can just see them tapping along with their sticks and their hats, and I just think it's great that she's managed to capture that in a new musical. Really,
if only the venue would let us have tap, please.
Not permitted.
No, on the temporary staging, sadly, there was a whole tap routine was planned for that.
And a soft suit shuffle just doesn't cut the mustard, does it? So, from a director's point of view, then we've spoken about Pippa's music. Let's talk about Jake's lyrics, which I think are catchy, clever, and just got just enough edge to make that comedy. It's not anodyne comedy;
Definitely.
It's sharp comedy.
Because I think it has a lovely balance of sort of quite cheesy lyrics that people are going to remember with little flashes of humour, like the sort of "Don't you get DVT?" That always gets a little laugh, and things like when people can remember the sort of "So let's fly away," little bits like that, and then the sort of little cutting sharp bits. So I think they're kind of getting the balance and making sure because you can't relax. Like the cast can never sort of relax, be like, okay, just back into the old chorus again, because there's always little punchy moments that they have to kind of make sure they're directing out to the audience.
Do you know, I sort of get, and this is going to sound very strange, but I sort of get a Gilbert and Sullivan symbiosis. That's not to say they're anything like Gilbert and Sullivan, but I get the sharp, clever lyrics, mollified, if you like, by the sweet melodies. Now, that's not in any way to say that both of them aren't working at a sophisticated level with what they do, because they absolutely do. But I do think that they've got the perfect professional marriage in some senses.
And I think there are some really touching moments, and sort of Ryan sort of confesses that he wants actually to have a boyfriend, but then you just get this massive contrast where Ryan comes back in, Richard comes back in, and he's just like, "Oh, purple's not your blue's not your colour. We had blue costumes, not purple."
He's got to be bitchy for the sake of it.
Exactly,
It's built in his programme.
And I just think that really works.
Well, the audience really went for that today. I mean,
they loved it, didn't
today's audience was very, I thought, buoyant and excited, and and you're right about it getting touching. I think it plays. It's perfect. It's trapdoor emotional responses. In fact, actually, I mean, it sets it all up as a comedy all the way, and then suddenly, it all pays off in each of their emotional journeys. Don't you think? Got to ask you a question. There's a missing song. You didn't do Cabin Fever, which is the
Yeah.
late edition from the Jermyn Street. I appreciate we're having one of those esoteric conversations that no one else in the country is ever going to
Yeah.
have, but let's have it anyway.
Do you
Well,
want to talk through this
yeah,
one?
I mean, I guess, well, because I saw the show without it.
Originally it wasn't in there, was it?
yeah. I mean, we did it when it was for the Cambridge run. We included Cabin Fever, though. It was, without a recording, it was a difficult one to teach
Yeah.
the cast.
No, they didn't record it at the time, did
No,
they?
they didn't. I mean, the cast all really enjoyed having it. We had a sort of sinister chorus line, we had great red lighting, but
The audience it didn't really click with the audience, and people sort of were sat there with sort of confused faces, sort of like, what is this song? Like, what's sort of going on?
Yeah.
It's the homage to Steam Heat in the Pyjama Game, isn't
Yeah.
it? I mean, that's what it feels like.
And I think the sort of clincher was when the audience said, when the venue said they could offer us a 1 hour and 20 slot, and when the show running it an hour and
Yeah.
25,
what
we
you're going to
thought,
cut, of course.
sorry, Cabin Fever. But we did actually ask Jake and Pippa's permission, and they said that was
yeah,
fine.
so,
They're a lovely
Yeah.
a couple of chaps, I think.
Yeah, they're great.
One a lady chap and one a man chap. I'm being non-gender specific, you understand.
Yeah, of course.
No, I think their work's brilliant. I mean, any chance of doing the Great British Soap Opera next year?
we have talked about this actually, and
we were.
Can
we
I just
wanted-
say for the audience, both your faces lit up in surprise and delight, if I may say.
No, well,
Any
we
people
actually
filming?
we wanted to try and squeeze it in last term and do it in Cambridge, but when we committed to the Fringe,
Yeah,
it just was too much
and with our
work.
degrees and everything.
The old
Where are
degree.
you? Where are you now in your terms? As it were? Where-
I'm about to go into third year.
Oh right.
I'm about to go into second year.
Yeah.
It's a
but-
busy year then.
Yeah,
It's
we
really
sort of,
busy.
I think, I probably, having done 2 years of very little work, should probably begin
And
to focus on the old degree. But we
And the
we
soap
really
opera.
have a plan in action to do Great British Soap Opera
Yeah,
at
at
some point.
Oh, you will.
We'd
Please
really
do.
like to.
Whether
And
we take it to the Fringe
Yeah.
at some point, or whether we do a run in London at some point.
Talking my language.
We were
I'm
kind of
not sure
hoping
what-
for maybe Christmas 2012 kind of time,
So,
something like that, little way
watch
away.
out
But
for that.
and we've got a great producer for that potentially, Flossie,
Oh,
and
yeah,
our
yeah.
choreographer for this seems keen. So I feel like it's sort of the puzzle pieces fitting together, perhaps.
Definitely.
You've already got the blueprint, by the
Yeah.
sounds of it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So how can people see Jet Set Go here in Edinburgh? If only it was on
Well-
your T-shirt.
They the venue is at the Radisson Blue Hotel. It's on the Mile.
It's the space in Nidri.
The
The
space
space at
Nidri
Nidri
Street.
Street.
So it's not actually. People have been getting a bit confused, and the box office has actually told me off for this. But I've been telling people to go to the hotel to book tickets. But actually, our venue is just round the corner from the hotel. It's still within the hotel, but it's just down Nidri Street. It's really easy to find,
It
just
is,
off
you can't
the
miss
just
it.
off the Mile. And yeah, just
Every
really,
day, 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Yeah,
Until the 27th of August.
Which is nearly the end, isn't it?
Yeah, just
near
about.
the end. But we've still got lots of tickets to sell. So
Although you sold out tonight, so book quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
is my
book
advice.
your tickets through the Ed Fringe website or at the Space at Nidri
Yeah.
box office.
Do you have your own website for this?
We have a blog, which
that'll
is
do.
jetsetgo2011.blogspot.com.
And will that stay up for a bit after the...
Yeah,
Oh,
should do.
good.
and you can also follow us on Twitter at JetSetGo2011.
Yeah.
Such
and-
confidence.
Yep, JetSetGo2011, Twitter, and
Search for us on Facebook,
yeah,
Jet Set
Facebook
Go.
page. But yeah, catch us on the Mile. We'll be performing
I
on
have
some
to
of
say,
the.
I have seen you and your cast several times on the Mile, and they're very much in character, it seems
Yeah.
to me. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm enjoying that. Well, thank you both for your time, and thank you so
very
much for
much.
a wonderful show. I'm going to tell you, it's a 5-star show.
Thank
And
you
I'm
very
very
much.
happy to
Yeah.
give you that, and long may you continue.
Oh,
Please
thank you very
do
much.
stay in touch with future productions. If you do
Yeah.
the Great British Soap Opera or any other musicals, if I can be of assistance to you, please let me know.
Brilliant,
very
thank you.
much.
Well, a 5-star show indeed. Jet Set Go. It's still as great as it was, and I do hope that that particular musical goes on from strength to strength. It deserves to have a long, long life. It's a cast iron comedy musical, hilariously done in this Cambridge University production. And now's the time, I think, to say a quick hello to Stephen Dutton. He's a listener of Musical Talk who was kind enough to recognise me in the street and did my ego no end of good, I have to tell you. And what a charming man he was. We went to see Jet Set Go together and both enjoyed it immensely. So Stephen, if you're listening, it was lovely meeting you, and thank you for your email. Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast. Not many Edinburgh shows are assured of a transfer, well, to anywhere really, but very few can say that they're leaving Edinburgh to go on to Hollywood. But the next show can. It's called A Sentimental Journey, the story of Doris Day, written by Adam Rolston, and very impressively directed by Alvin Rakoff, described as part stage drama, part musical extravaganza, with songs such as The Deadwood Stage, Secret Love, Day by Day, K Sarah Sarah, It's Magic, Young at Heart, and Perhaps. We get to see Sally Hughes appear as Doris Day. And what an amazing turn that is, because Sally is a great actress in her own right, but she also managed to encapsulate, and that's the exactly correct word. It's not an impression, it's a proper acting job which encapsulates Doris Day. And I was lucky enough to meet up with Sally Hughes and have a short conversation just after a performance which was incredibly well received by the audience. Let's hear that now. You're listening to Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast.
My name is Sally Hughes, and my involvement with the show is I play Doris Day.
You do. Yes, the whole thing hangs around you. And the show has come to Edinburgh from London already, hasn't it? You've been a huge success, really.
At Wilton's Music Hall,
Yeah.
which was the most gorgeous space.
It's a fantastic... It has the beauty of decrepitude, doesn't it?
Oh, it's one. But backstage, it's just beautifully run, and it's just gorgeous. It's clean and wonderful. I won't say any more.
Yes, from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Yes, but then from here we're going back to the Mill at Sonny, where it started, which is my theatre that I run, and then we're going on to Los Angeles.
Yes, you've got a transatlantic transfer.
I know.
The show is let's get down to basics. The show is a brilliant show about the life of Doris Day, which has very cleverly interpolated her biggest hits at exactly the right moments in the narrative.
Yes.
Sometimes getting other characters to sing to her, which I think is a very nice movement.
Yes,
So
yes.
How did it come to be, if you don't mind me saying?
Well,
And you've been instrumental at the beginning, haven't you?
Yes, in that Adam Rolston, the very young playwright, wanted to write something for the Mill, and I said, well, have a look at Doris Day. And he went, we're Doris Day, as a lot of young people do. Not only that he didn't know particularly about her. And then he went away and obviously researched and came back. He said, I've got an angle. He said, I think I can write something through the eyes of her son. And
It's a very good narrative device in a strange way. It allows you to jump when you need to.
Yes, it does. Yes, and they did have a very special relationship. She and her son, as every mother and son usually does, and I have a son, so I could relate to that, and so it was great. And
But how easy is it for you to become Doris? Because you sing beautifully, as she does, but with your own voice. And you sound like Doris at the same time. There's you and Doris Day are there in the same person.
That's
which is
interesting.
Wonderful, I think.
Yes, I mean, I think it's. I listened to her. She has this wonderful vibrato. She's got the most gorgeous, warm voice, incredibly low. So some of the keys, incredibly low but incredibly sweet. So it sounds higher. So some of the keys are higher than the ones that she sang them in. But just to suit my voice. So Joe Stewart, who's a very experienced musical director, we worked out the right keys to suit me and to sound like Doris. And then just listening to that vibrato and getting that vibrato in my voice, which I didn't have before.
Did you not?
No.
I mean, but you could sing before, clearly.
Oh yes, of course.
Greatly, of course.
Yes, but yes.
But as an actress, if you don't mind me asking, how do you approach taking on a living person? Not even, she is still with us.
She is still very much, and she's about to release, as your radio program must know, a new album, which is amazing, because we all thought she'd become reclusive. And
we'll get her and Vera Lynn to get together. And
I know, I mean, just amazing. What was the question you asked me?
How do you approach taking on a living person?
I think, again, reading her biographies and the ones that she sanctioned, looking at her films, although that's not her, that's
an image of.
Looking at her TV shows, funny enough, because that was more conversational. So that's where I got the accent from.
Oh, really? When she was, as you say, in conversation,
yes, so
being more of herself.
Yes, and she was more my age as well, when she was doing her television shows.
I'll pay you the compliment of saying you do it all. If you're very good at the beginning, all the way
right,
through.
Okay.
So
that's fun
the years
to go
peel
from
off you, and they never get on you.
No, right. Going from the little girl to...
It's the wig as well. You've got this sort of...
There's no wig.
Is that really your hair at the beginning?
It's all my hair.
Well,
it goes up into bunches.
Yes.
like that, and then it goes up. No.
I assumed you moved into your own hair. later on with the slightly more adult haircut.
No.
Oh, really? Oh, what versatile hair you have, let alone anything else.
It's very versatile hair. My hair is my thing. And just that her attitude to life, I think, is she's a strong woman. That, you know what she's gone through in her life, and I think she sees everything from a sort of sunny point of view. I do think.
Well, she puts that across as well, doesn't she?
She does.
And so
in her
do you
interviews.
very well.
Yes, I think she's great. I think she's great. So,
but let me ask you about your involvement in the production and how has the production developed? You know, have songs come and gone?
Well, funny enough, it's not gone backwards, but it's got shorter for Edinburgh because we had to cut it to 1 hour 20. But actually, the writer and the director now can see it. That it works so well cut because it's so fast moving.
Oh yeah, there's not a slack moment.
No. And of course Alvin is the most experienced director. I mean, he's done, you know, if you read his biog, directed Laurence Olivier and oops, you got some
outtakes then.
Outtakes. But
I was sitting in the lift usually, that's how I get them.
Oh right. Let that go for a minute. But
so it's been cut down.
So it's been cut down, but when we go back to Sonning and back to LA, a few numbers will go back in.
And how long is the show properly, would you say? Is it a 2-actor?
It's a 2-actor, yes. So Act 1 finishes at Love Me or Leave Me,
yes, and
then starts with Deadwood Stage. So normally I have 20 minutes to get into Calamity, do my hair, you know, all of that. And now I've got 1 minute and 20 seconds, and it's like noises off backstage. I mean, so many quick changes.
Well, I mean, it's a big ask of an actress, isn't it? Because you're on from beginning to end pretty much, and you've got costume changes, and you've got singing, and there's dancing.
Yes, there's everything. I don't even think Doris did that on stage because she didn't. She wasn't on stage after the big band thing, so
You're Doris Plus in a way.
Well, not really, but yes, there's a lot to do. But that's
But
fine.
it looks like fun. Are you enjoying it?
Loving it, and the company are amazing.
You've got a good cast.
Strong. The best cast yet. Wonderful.
And do you have a website? I'm sure people will be interested
in
following your program.
www.asentimentaljourney.co.uk. Yes.
And it's also, but let's talk about the transfer to America. Now that's a massive compliment as well, isn't it? Because it's a British ball musical, I think.
Yes. It started at the Mill at Sonning Theatre down near Reading. We did it at Wilton's, and Ray Cooney
of Great Fast Name.
Of Great Fast Name came to see it.
Oh, fabulous!
Loved it. He produces at this theatre called El Portal in America, in Hollywood, North Hollywood.
Does he really?
Because his son is a scriptwriter and lives in LA, so he spends every Christmas out there.
It's genetic, is it?
Yes. And he was telling the people at lovely Peggy and Jay that run El Portal Theatre about the show, and they said, well, they would love to read it. And then Alvin, the director, and I went over there in April, and they said, well, we'll bring it over. I mean, it is a bit scary because she is, there, and there'll be a lot of people, friends of hers, I'm sure, that see it. And
in her circle, well, yes.
Yes, and I do wake up at 3 in the morning in a cold sweat, thinking.
Well, can I pay you the compliment of saying you inhabit her with absolute perfection and confidence? There's not a slipped moment in the piece. The pace doesn't let up, the performances don't let up, and it just radiates delight. Certainly the audience I was with today were glowing when it left. And you can tell when people are not happy, and you can tell when, and it's a rainy day today.
Yes,
that normally works against the atmosphere, but by Jove, they were up for it.
Yes,
so, yeah.
Yes, no, they were great. They were a lovely audience. Yes, we've got some great houses this week.
And you've been getting really good reviews as well, haven't you? Several 4 stars.
Yes, I try not to look at the reviews. I don't want to look at the reviews.
Well, let me just tell you then, obviously we consider you to be a 4-star show because it's just great.
Thank you.
And I wish you every great success for the future.
Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me.
That's
and
a pleasure.
I look forward to being able to say I spoke to her before she became a famous film star here in her own right.
All right. Thank you very much.
I have high hopes for her.
Yes.
And that was the splendid Sally Hughes with A Sentimental Journey, the story of Doris Day. I've awarded that 4 stars. It's a great night with a great day, if you'll pardon the expression. And if you want to see it after Edinburgh, you can, but you'll have to go to America, or if you're in America, you'll have to stay in America, because it's going to its Hollywood debut at the El Portal Theatre. Details at www.asentimentaljourney.co.uk. And I really did get the impression that I had seen Doris Day on stage. Well, we're about halfway through this episode, and it's been quality, quality, quality. And I'm not thinking of changing that now, because we move on to another 5-star show. And it's from an old friend of this programme. The truly delightful Lily Lascala is up in Edinburgh again, as we heard last week, when she and I met earlier in the year to discuss her plans. Well, I had the pleasure of seeing it, and it does not fail to cause enjoyment and pleasure. It's called, very simply, but very accurately, Songs to Make You Smile. And I had the pleasure of catching up with Lily for a breakfast interview to discuss how it's been going. Lily, it's marvellous to see you again, and you're back here in Edinburgh, and you're back here with a brand new show,
yes,
which is cracking.
Oh,
I'm going to tell you straight off, Songs to Make You Smile.
Yes.
Now, we discussed it a bit before when you were sort of coming up with the idea. Now you're actually doing it. How are you finding things?
I really enjoy it. You know, it's a real joy for me to sing songs that I really, really love and to share them with people who maybe haven't heard them before. And
some of them definitely. Some
of the songs are really quite rare, and it's always a treat to sing something that hasn't been sung for 70 or 80 years. It's almost like you're rebirthing something, and you're bringing it back to people so they can go home and maybe look it up and listen to it. And you know, it sort of brings it back to life. It's a real treat.
Well, you are actually. I think you're a song doctor in some
A song doctor. I like that. Song doctor. Musical talk.
Oh, you can have that one. Yes.
Thank you.
But seriously, yes, no. But well, let's go straight into the rarities then, because you are a researcher as well as a supreme performer. And we were talking previously when we met about this fantastic sheet music that you finally tracked down, the song about Hitler from the Second World War.
Yes, I finally found it.
Hitler song.
It is. It's one of the rare ones that actually... It's wonderful because the English have such a silly sense of humour and almost a very sarcastic sense of humour. It really... this song is incredibly sarcastic and very very rude about Hitler, actually.
As it was wont to be.
And it's wonderful that not every war song is sort of sad and melancholic, and it's wonderful to have these ones that are real sort of almost two fingers up to Hitler. It's great.
It's a kick in the pants,
it really, it absolutely is, and I just love that. It really makes me chuckle.
How has that song gone down with you?
Oh,
because no one will. Will they?
It's gone down really well. Yesterday it was a bit tricky because we had two Germans in the audience.
Oh, really?
And so as soon as I sort of started, I thought, oh, this could be awkward. And I chatted to them before, so we realised, and me and the audience had realised before that they were German. And actually, funnily enough, they were friends with my pianist, Stuart Nichols. Oh. And so he'd sort of said, oh, you know, they're German. And so he sang the song, and afterwards I sort of said to them, I'm terribly sorry, I know we mustn't talk about the war. And they actually took it in. I think now enough time has passed, and everybody acknowledges that Hitler was an idiot.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I don't think anyone is labouring under any illusions. And actually, I think now that so much time has passed, we can acknowledge that, yes, Hitler did terrible things, but fundamentally we must be able to laugh at stuff.
Well, he's encapsulated by history, isn't he now?
You know, I think now people think the man was an evil so-and-so, but you have to laugh at stuff. And if they could laugh at it while it was happening, I think we can laugh at it now.
I'm going to have to tell you, that song, and I remember we had this discussion earlier as well, I said at the time, do you know, that reminds me very much of a song from Blitz by Lionel Bart. When I actually heard the song, beautifully sung by you, I thought even more. Do you know, this song reminds me of a song by Lionel Bart. Now,
wonder if he...
Well, do you know, it even makes reference to a basket.
Oh, wow.
And in your song, I'm going to call it your song now.
My song, it is my song.
There's a reference to Hitler being a bit of a basket.
Oh, wow.
You know, the joke being that you can't say the word bastard, but everyone knows what you're talking about. That's also there in there. Some of the melodic line is there.
Wow,
now, do you know
interesting.
That in the 60s, Lionel Bart was treated exactly the same way as Andrew Lloyd Webber is today. People always used to say Lionel Bart steals his
music.
And indeed, there was a kind of comic poking fun. You know, people now sing these songs where they sing a song by Lloyd Webber. Pit and the Widow do this. They sing a song by Lloyd Webber and then they sing a very similar sounding melody with the original lyrics.
It's like the God on High.
Yes.
It's the humming chorus from Madame Butterfly. But you didn't hear it from me.
No. no one would credit that. But people did exactly the same thing with Lionel Bart. And having heard that song, I have to say he must have been aware of it.
It must have been quite famous because it was written by Annette Mills.
Well, as in...
of Boomster Daisy fame.
Well, she's also famous for
Muffin the Mule. Yes.
So one of the great
John
songs of the 20th
John Mills'
century.
sister. Yes, so she actually wrote that song, which is funny because when I first got it, I thought it's quite a masculine song for a woman to write.
Yes, well, that's whimsical, isn't isn't it?
It is whimsical.
Fingers
it's
in
quite,
marmalade and all that.
It's quite aggressive. It's not a particularly feminine song. And it was sung by a couple of chaps whose names now, it being incredibly early in the morning, completely escape me. But sort of two burly chaps singing this song. So it's quite a masculine song, but I just love it.
So tell us about some of the other selections.
Well, there's...
Because you start with Wonderful, Wonderful Day.
Yes, well, I love Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. It's one of my favourite movies.
And it's one of those songs, I was watching the audience to a degree. The audience were thinking, I know this song, but I don't know
where I know it from.
Exactly, You must get that as well.
I get that a lot, and I think it's really nice when people go, I recognise that song. It's almost like in their childhood once the film was on at Christmas while they were cooking or in the kitchen, and the songs just... it's like osmosis.
Yes.
It's musical osmosis. You take songs in. And, so that's in there. I mean, if I could, I'd do a whole show of just show songs, really wonderful old show songs. Well,
Broadway Lily.
It's Broadway Lily, yes. It's a tough one because sometimes they can be a bit, shows just of show songs can be a bit cheesy. And
it's half their charm. Sometimes.
It is half their charm, and because I love show songs, I love them. But I think at the moment I'm having more fun finding these little rare gems.
Well, we'll get back to the selection in a minute, but I'm going to compliment you because what I liked about the show so much, from beginning to end, it does exactly what you say you're going to do, which is it puts a smile on people's faces.
Yes.
It is a song these are songs that will make you
smile.
They're bright songs, but there's tone. You haven't got. It's not a one-note show under any circumstances. You've got bright and breezy, and then you've got comic, and then you've got whimsical.
You've got slightly macabre.
There's a fantastic one about the lambs.
Oh, the Will You Love Me When I'm Mutton?
Yes.
It's certainly not one for vegetarians.
But it's a great song. By the way, it's got one of my favourite rhymes, Rissole and Twin Souls.
Yes. And what I really love about it is that I still cook like that, but I don't know how many other people still do. Like I still do a roast. I do a roast on the Sunday, cold on a Monday, and then we generally have a shepherd's pie or a cottage pie on the Tuesday.
And
by Thursday we sort of have a soup or rissoles. We still have rissoles.
Splendid. And for younger listeners, a rissole is a burger in a different shape.
It's sort of like a fish cake without the fish. It's like
a meat cake.
A meat cake. Yes, it's sort of like a burger but covered in flour and then fried.
But it's nice. Yeah.
Sounds horrendous, but it's actually really delicious, and it's a great way to finish up the meat. So I love it because it's sort of not only is it a song that's very, very funny and quite macabre, but it's also quite educational.
It reflects
because
life as it was.
It does, and I really, really like that. And I think.
How did you stumble on that one?
I found it in a little tiny shop in a place called Invercargill in New Zealand. It's a very backwards town. They've sort of got to 1950. I love it there because they've got to 1950 and they've stopped and gone, no, we are fine here. This is far enough. Let us go no further. And so they've sort of stuck there, which is wonderful. And there was this little tiny antique shop, and I found this wonderful piece of sheet music there. And so I brought it home with me.
And do it to perfection. Also, this show, you banter with with Stuart Nichols, who's your accompanist.
Oh, he's wonderful.
And yes, he's very, very nice fingers, very light fingered.
Yep, he's great.
But I enjoy the banter with the two of you, and there's a sense that it's spontaneous every day.
It is. We sort of have points where he sort of says the same thing and I say the same thing back. But generally, we sort of come up with stuff. Yes, we sort of. And at the moment we seem to be having this one-upmanship of one-liners where one person will say something and then someone will say something back, and then it'll outfox the other person. By the next day they'll have found a comeback. So these exchanges are getting longer and longer. But it's great because we're still very new working together, and it's the first time I've actually had an accompanist who is confident enough to chat with me.
Yes.
And is perfectly capable of holding his own comedically and
it's definitely
interestingly.
I mean, you're the star, but there's, he's not a shrinking violet.
Yes, that's exactly the I think that's exactly what I wanted for this show. I wanted someone who could hold their own. I didn't just want it to be, and this is my piano player. I wanted it to be the two of us. I wanted there to be stuff between us, because it's new for me. It's new for me talking to my piano player, because obviously in classical,
yes,
you don't. You sort of they accompany you. You can't chat to them, banter with them, and joke with them in front of an audience. It's not. It's not really done.
Get going.
Yes. So that's new for me. And also in this show, there's a little more talking to the audience, which is also incredibly new for me, because audiences terrify me. They just terrify me.
Yet you seem so confident. I suspect you terrify audiences.
Well, probably. It's probably we're all terrified. No, they terrify me. I get terrible stage fright of people coming and watching me. Sometimes I just wish they'd go away.
I can tell you that doesn't come across. And you look, I mean, forgive me, you always look spectacular. You always look
thank
fantastic.
you.
There is, I mean, you are by far the best dressed person, male or female, here at the Fringe. Absolutely,
Thank you.
without a doubt. Even as I'm interviewing you, you're an absolute picture.
Oh gosh, no, I feel terrible this morning.
If you could see yourself.
Oh, thank you.
But it's a 50s look, I think you're going for
Yes.
slightly more, aren't you? You've got
Well, it's sort of-
Alma Koganey going with.
I sort of phase in and out of different eras. I mean, sometimes I feel quite 30s, sometimes I feel quite 40s, and sometimes I sort of... Majority of the time it's 50s. I love the 50s style.
Well, it suits you so well.
Thank
That
you.
Lovely blue dress, and you have the matching eye makeup as well.
Yes.
But it's such an open show because you greet us on the door as we come in.
I think
That
it's
was
really
so
nice.
lovely.
I think it's really... It also helps with my stage fright. Because I find it's much less terrifying if you come on stage if you've already seen the audience and welcomed them in.
Yeah.
And so
But
that's
you're
one of my...
the few people doing it.
Well, it's my mechanism to cope with stage fright. If I've seen everyone and I've already made friends with them and spoken to them and I know exactly where they are and where they're sitting, when I first come on, it's no surprise for me. I'm not coming on and going, oh my God, there's people here. Why are there people here? So it's not a surprise. And it also means, if I have a smaller house, I know I've got a smaller house. If I've got a massive house, I know I've got a massive house. So it's nice.
Faces as well, yes.
Yeah, I like that.
What has been a surprise for you in the show? Has any song done tremendously well, more than you expected, stood out? Has any song been different? Have you made any changes?
Do you know what? It's different every day.
Oh, it is?
It's different every day because different audiences go with different songs.
Now, that's interesting.
I mean, sometimes people laugh uproariously for Will You Love Me When I'm Mutton and the What Do You Buy a Nudist for His Birthday? They laugh uproariously, and other times they sort of don't really. And other times, people absolutely adore dark music.
Which is the Ivor Novello.
The Ivor Novello one.
And it's a lovely song. And it's a lovely
glorious.
song, and it's a lovely piece of punctuation in the piece as well.
It's really in there just for me. It's a real sort of soul food moment. It's just a real joy to sing, and the emotion of it is really amazing.
And what show is that from?
It's from Arc de Triomphe.
Which is not one of his famous ones.
No,
Not
I
now.
don't think it ran for very long in the West End either.
I can hear
and
the
of
reviews
course,
now, not a triumph.
not a triumph. But I think a lot of his music was actually destroyed during the war, and also apparently things would come off stage after not very successful runs, and they'd literally just be binned.
So there are lost Ivor Novello songs?
There are lost Ivor Novello scores.
Good, really?
So we have obviously some of the songs from the shows, but the whole scores are actually lost.
That's a tragedy.
Which is a tragedy. So
because someday Ivor Novello will come back. There'll be.
I'm trying.
Yes.
I'm trying really hard. I'd love to do a whole show of his songs. Because he does actually have some quite funny ones. The sort of the Primrose of Primrose Hill is Naughty Little Primrose.
And Mother.
And her mother came too.
Is a
Because
famous.
I told you about I want to do Lily's brother Willie.
Yes, you did.
Willie La Scala. So I can sing, and her mother came too, because I just think it's just such a fabulous song. And there are all those wonderful male songs that I just want to do, and also a lot of Vesta Tilley's songs.
Now she's the female impersonator from the musical.
The female-male impersonator.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yes.
She was actually a woman, and she
Yes.
used to dress as an
Yes.
aristocrat, didn't
Yes.
she? She's Burlington. Is she Burlington Bertie?
No, I think that was yes, she was. Yes, I think she was. And she she had some fantastic songs. So I'm sort of looking into that sort of thing. I'm sort of starting to dip my toe in the water of cross-dressing, much to my mother's disdain. she's not totally keen on that idea. And actually, it's funny because Vesta Tilley's family are the same. Her remaining relatives have sort of brushed under the carpet this amazing legacy of this incredible woman who really paved the way for cross-dressing performers of today. Really.
Well, I mean, her great gift is the fact that she was a woman being a man, because the other way around
Yes.
would be, being a great staple.
Done for years.
Yeah, and Shakespeare it had to be.
Yes.
Of course. So, gosh, I didn't know that. And
Yeah.
yet, forgive me, Vesta Tilley is still one of the big names in
Absolutely.
the original musical.
Yes, I think I was discussing with Stuart, and he was saying that her family aren't really keen on, which is such a shame.
Silly Tillies.
Silly Tillies.
But getting back to songs that make you smile, have you taken any songs into the show during its run, or taken any songs out, or is it pretty much
No,
still as planned?
it's pretty much stayed as planned. We added Will You Love Me When I'm Mutton in June, because I only found it
recently
in late May, so we added that one.
And
other
your
than
Missing
that,
Gracie Fields
my
number
Missing
goes
Gracie,
down the tree.
the Will You Love Me When I'm
Yeah.
Mutton? No, the Nudist for His Birthday.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
Just love it.
It's the,
I love
it's
it.
the kind of thing that people think would be a George Formby number.
Yes.
Yeah. But of course, Gracie Fields was very much George Formby's female. Well, it was his female
Absolutely.
contemporary, and they, in some ways, they were cut from a very similar cloth.
Well, both northern, both working class, and wonderful.
And
both
perky.
And perky and chirpy and incredibly funny.
Yes.
Incredibly funny. Like I watched the old George Formby movies, and he was just hilarious. Just everything about him, his face, his eyes. He had the most amazing eyes. Really incredible. And the way he strummed his banjolele, he's amazing. Just an incredible.
Have you ever heard one of the very rare acoustic recordings of his father, George Formby Senior?
No.
Same voice.
Really?
George Formby, more
how
or less,
interesting.
took
Copied his father's
character,
act,
but then developed it and made it,
yes,
a 1930s everyman rather than a turn of a century everyman.
How interesting. But I just adore everything about him. In fact, I have quite a large George Formby crush, and it's so strange. It's one of those crushes where you look at him and you go, no.
Well, no, you wouldn't necessarily.
Other people look at him and go, why? But I just look at him and think, he makes me swoon. It's
Now, his songs. Well, let's talk about songs that make you smile here in Edinburgh. How can people get to see you?
Well, they can come along to the Bosco in George Square Gardens, and they can buy a ticket and come. It's at 5:00 every day, and it's great.
In a kind of big top, really, aren't you?
Yeah, in a very old tent. She's from 1906.
Is that true?
Yep, she's
well,
over 100 years old, and like many old ladies, she's slightly leaky. But
creaky.
she's leaky and creaky, but aren't we all with age? So if it rains too hard, it comes in the roof. And the amount of times I've nearly broken my leg walking down the stairs. So if you are...
I'll tell you what, it gives you a kind of sort of... it's very reminiscent of a circus or a fairground.
Yes, it's fairground.
It really sets,
I love it.
It screams entertainment, actually,
yes.
Even the venue.
It's old style. It's an old tent with old songs for an old show. So
but beautifully,
for me, it's glorious.
But absolutely cutting edge delivery and cutting edge. it's the show is now. It's whilst it's absolutely.
Well, I don't want to just do a sort of a vintage rendition of vintage. So I want sort of people to enjoy the songs today rather than just going, it's just nostalgic. It is nostalgic, but it's also.
It's more than that, isn't it?
I want to bring these songs back. I want to bring them back to life and, show people that they're still, if not relevant, enjoyable.
But is it going anywhere further after Edinburgh?
Well, we've got some festivals potentially booked in for next year around England. Other than that, no. But if anyone wants to book it, they're more than welcome.
And how can you find you? Where's your website?
www.lililascala.com.
And that's Lily with 2 I's, isn't it? L-I-L-I.
L-I-L-I. Spelt the French way.
Absolutely.
Just to be difficult.
So, Lily, thank you so much for joining us again today. Your shows are fantastic.
Thank you.
I have no hesitation in giving this 5 stars. And I have to tell you, it's vocal perfection.
Thank you.
And you not only put a smile on people's faces, you put one in their hearts.
Oh, that's a wonderful quote. Thank you.
But I look forward to speaking and seeing you again.
I look forward to seeing you too.
You're listening to Musical Talk. Well, that was the lovely, ever lovely, in fact, eternally lovely, Lily LaScala. She's a fantastic singer, a fantastic performer, and just a delight. And I wish that we were making this on video because she looked a treat, even early in the morning. It was 9:45. We were having a breakfast cup of tea as we conducted that interview, and she was wearing perfect 1940s clothing, a headscarf and a beautiful floral print dress. She's absolutely the most stylish woman in Edinburgh at any time, but certainly during the Fringe, and there's a lot of competition then. And that was a 5-star show. It definitely puts a smile on your face and in your heart. Vocal perfection from Lily LaScala. Well, so far, all the shows we've been talking about today have been shows that I was able to see this year at the Fringe. The next, well, that's a show that this year I didn't have time to see. Genuinely, I had 45 shows to see in 8 days, and just occasionally I like to sleep or have a bowl of pasta. But, as I was saying, the next show is one that I couldn't see this year, but have seen in the past. And yet, enigmatically, it's different every time. How can this be? Well, of course, it's one of the many improvised musicals up in Edinburgh. It's the No Shoes Theatrical Company's The Improvised Musical, the definitive article, as I said earlier in the programme. There are plenty of improvised musicals around in Edinburgh and indeed all over the country. This year I counted at least 4 companies doing it. but No Shoes' version is definitely one of the best. And of course it's such an amazing feat, a brand new musical created from scratch every day. It takes a lot of talent and a lot of skill. And you also have to know how to do that in synchronicity with your other performers. That's a subject I was very interested to explore further. So I'm now delighted to let you hear how two performers from the improvised musical do it in this following fascinating and ever interesting interview with Michael Slater and his colleague Ed from No Shoes' The Improvised Musical.
Hello, my name is Michael Slater and I'm the director of The Improvised Musical.
Hi, I'm Ed Lewis-Smith and I've been performing with No Shoes Theatre for 3 years now.
Actually, I'm going to go straight in with an interesting question, or what I think is an interesting question. How can you be a director of an improvised show?
That is an interesting question. I think the artistic direction in the improvised musical really lies in the style and how you treat the audience and what type of show we are trying to provide. And there are lots of other improvised musicals, and they all provide very different types of shows. And ours is this kind of very audience interactive, very funny, very quick, and thank you, and fun show. And so the direction really is, or obviously teaching people improvisation and practicing that and giving people tips on how they can do it better, but often steering people in the direction of our particular take on the genre. Which is difficult, as you might imagine.
And it's all done in camera, as it were, isn't it? Presumably your direction of the piece, such as you are able to do it, is in front of everyone? I mean...
Yes, I mean...
in camera. It's on and off camera, I suppose. Well, what's the term I'm looking for? In cammer means closed doors, isn't it? I'm being an idiot.
What
I mean is, you're doing it all in the public eye. So much of what you... Gathering things together, yes.
Yeah. When we're on stage, we don't have like Showstopper have a director on stage. We don't have a director, and so kind of once they're on stage, it's kind of everyone for themselves, isn't it?
You very much become an equal once the musical begins.
Yeah.
Your director status is very much at the fore in the training process and at the very beginning of the show when we get stuff off the audience, where you're introducing the show to set the tone of the piece, really.
Yeah, and it's really important that I'm not a director as the piece is going, because otherwise you end up in a situation where everybody's watching me to decide what to do, and that's exactly not what I wanted to do.
And No Shoes, the improvised musical, is about these 6 actors, the team, making the show, not really one person telling them
somehow magically working together and not being told what to do. Yeah.
Right. So in fact, it's all. But right, how would you bring it together if you were missing one of the 2 of the elements which the public had given you beforehand? I mean, obviously collegiately, presumably.
Yeah. I mean, we've chosen those elements. We choose to take a starting location and the title of one of the songs we should include and a name for the musical. And we also give out cards that they can hold up during the show. So
rewind moments.
For example, flashback and spotlight and that sort of thing, which force actors on stage into doing something that they hadn't planned to do, which the audience obviously really enjoy.
Take props off the audience as well, which become often key elements in the show when someone's scarf.
In case you missed it.
Such a long show title.
When we would take someone's shoe, hat or scarf and turn it into a dancing shroud, as has happened in this year's run. So often, again, that'll be the audience making the story happen as such.
So really, I mean, in directorial terms, it's not done in public, and you actually, as you say, I think it's very interesting that you say you're all equals. I think that's because that does mark you out as rather different from many of the other shows.
Yeah, and really importantly, I think that's one of the key elements of what sets us apart. Obviously in the training process, it's very strange. I always say you should never ever be in a show, because I'm in the show as well. You should never be in a show that you direct, but with the improvised musical, because the rehearsal process is very separate, is very distinct from the shows themselves, that's not really a problem. I mean,
it's a methodological direction rather than...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so when we're in rehearsal, I will set things up. I'll set up games, or I'll set up scenarios or whatever, but then next time I'll say, Ed, right, what do you think, what's the scenario, or come up with this for us, or whatever. And so while I'm leading in terms of being the final say, I'm not necessarily running the whole thing. I mean, it's a very communal...
But you are Lord No Shoes.
Lord No
Shoes. You're director of No Shoes Theatre, certainly.
Yes.
Now, taking us off the track a little bit, you've been doing this for 3 years. Is it a surprise to you, here in Edinburgh, is it a surprise to you that you are now an Edinburgh institution? In an institution here at Edinburgh, IEC?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
You've taken off very quickly, and people talk about you. You're one of those shows that people do talk about, and positively.
Which is lovely. Which really, really is lovely. And it's a bit of a shame that the genre itself is becoming so clogged. But then again, I guess that kind of breeds development and all that sort of stuff. So if we go and see another show and we think, they've done that pretty well, maybe we should work harder on X or Y. It does help having other shows around, but yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a surprise that we're an institution. I think we try pretty hard.
I think it's a surprise how quickly it's happened. It doesn't seem any time ago since we were in Sissoko thinking we're doing an improvised musical.
She's very insistent, this isn't it? I once did an interview at the National Theatre, and they call 4 times.
Oh, goodness.
So my outtakes are about 20 minutes.
Goodness.
Wow.
It doesn't seem any time ago that we were in Sissoko thinking we're about to do an improvised musical, but it was originally an improvised musical.
Yes.
Not the.
No, it became the in the
object,
second year, indeed. But that's an interesting point, that it's become the improvised musical, in that when we started...
And not some, which is
not some, exactly.
And
the fact that we've become popular, and as you say, as a kind of institution, just validates our format of the show, which is always something that we've thought about a lot. And we did the research and thought, well, there are other groups that do it very differently. Is ours going to work? And it shows that the audience, they love it, so clearly it does.
The house is now open for this morning's performance of the Old Dublin. Please make your way to C+1.
In a minute, she'll say, ladies and gentlemen, you've just missed the opportunity.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's actually talking about being talked about and that sort of thing. It's really interesting when we get reviews. We've had loads of reviews. We often do have a lot of reviews. They almost always compare us to the other improvised musicals, and we almost always come out favourably.
Audience members, audience members always, almost.
Yep, and we almost always get 4 stars, and everyone else seems to get 5 stars. And it's such a weird rut that we're in, this kind of 4-star rut where people have gone, but I don't know if that show can be 5 stars. I don't know what it is that we've got ourselves stuck in.
Can I make a suggestion? Do you think it might be your age? Because you're all very young performers, and there is a slight prejudice in the world that young people can't be speech marks professional, which is just nonsense, obviously, whereas a lot of the others have got slightly older people in, and therefore just look like seasoned veterans.
No, I absolutely agree. But I think a lot of what makes our show what it is, and how fun it is and how quick it is that we're young. And so it's a bit of a vicious circle, really. I think if we were...
I wouldn't worry about that. That'll cure itself in good time.
As we're still doing it in 10 years, yeah.
But another great thing with our show is that we're very much big on the approachability factor, that we always say at the end of each show, follow us on Twitter and Facebook and all the rest of it. And we're very happy to just meet people and just chat to them. And so that may appear to some as unprofessional, but to others it means we have a great audience following.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think you're the perkiest of your type. And if you don't mind me saying, being perky is, in my book, quite the best thing. No one wants to come to these things and, we're not doing Strindberg. It's good, honest comic fun. I mean, you do very much, you're good, accomplished, funny people. And I think, therefore, you're fresher as well. Yeah. I mean, I like the other ones, or some of the other ones, let's put it that way, but there is this sense that, one or two of them have got their formula, or...
Yeah,
trying so hard that you can sometimes see the sweat.
Yeah.
It's something that we can't stress enough, and we always do stress. And one of the biggest compliments, I think I said this last time we spoke actually, one of the biggest compliments is when someone comes up at the end of the show and goes, "There's no way that was improvised. I don't believe you." And it's
the most frustrating compliment there can be.
And we really do improvise everything. And I think, our structure is, and as much as the rest of the cast know about our structure, is that we will start by taking suggestions from the audience. When we've announced what the title of the show is, we will go directly into a chorus number, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's the structure of our
the
show.
The structure is getting what the audience said to us into a plot of a new musical. That is the structure.
And people just don't get it. So they come up and they're like, but presumably Gareth plays the same chord progressions. No. Or, he presumably puts a song in the same scene every night.
We have a set coda to each final song.
Yeah.
Completely not true.
Invite them back for a second night and prove it. Sure.
Well, that's what we always say.
Yeah,
we always say, please come back again because it's completely different. And when people do, they come up at the end and they go, I believe you. That's incredible.
I was wrong, have £10.
Yes.
But you raise a very interesting question here. And it's the question everyone wants to know, I suspect, because last time we were speaking, it was just you, Michael, and you were saying that the way you prepare for this is by getting to a fever pitch, if you like, a taut string of improvisation. And that's fine as an individual. But you're an ensemble, and you're an ensemble with improvised. Listen to that, improvised music. I've just invented a new word. I must be Shakespeare. With improvised music, how do you two, forgive me, as performers, find synchronicity in the way that you improvise? I mean, to me, that seems doubly fantastic.
I think there's part of it that we've been doing it together now for a considerable length of time. So we know each other. We know how each other's kind of creative mind works. We all our different skills balance each other out. Obviously at the moment we're all living together as well, and we've got a piano in the living room, and one person will be singing somewhere in the house
all the time.
Pretty much all the time.
Is that you don't have a lock on the lavatory?
No, there are two lavatories, so often there are two people singing.
So that's how you do it. Marvellous.
Exactly, and it's just the kind of, in the lead up to the Fringe and during the Fringe, just keeping that creative momentum going as a team in any way or shape possible.
And I think on a kind of fundamental improv level, I always try and explain it to people. There are improvisatory rules, and they're not rules that you have to stick to. What they are is a framework. So setting up status and knowing one another's status and offering things and
being generous in it.
And it's not that you stick to the rules, it's that if I see someone break them, if I see Ed do something on stage and I know he's not followed the framework, I know he's done it on purpose. And so you can because there is a framework, you don't need to follow it, you just need to know it's there. And Ed needs to know that when he breaks it, he's broken
it for a reason.
And so then I know that he's broken it for a reason, and that really helps.
It becomes a cue and a clue.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It really helps latching onto
certainly. But these framework is not meant to sound like a kind of really dense theatrical technique. It's quite common sense when you think about how stories and characters work. There's always going to be a high status and a low status person. You always want to see a journey or a love story.
It's the 7 plots.
Exactly. It's the 7 basic plots. The cynic to improvised musical, I say, there's always a love story, there's always but that's just how stories work.
It's not just improvised.
Exactly.
Almost every show in Edinburgh.
Well, exactly. Like that, and in what we do is not only try and recreate that, but in some sense parody it as well, which is why it's so fun.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, presumably it's easier to get people to understand what you're parodying, even if...
Well, exactly.
If they've experienced it a million times elsewhere.
Exactly. You can wander on stage and go, ah, ha, 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 and the audience exactly know what's going to happen in that entire scene. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Can I ask, however, have you ever been to a situation where the two of you, not just the two of you particularly, where two performers are somehow out of synchronicity in a show? Is it easy to get yourselves back into the rhythm?
No.
Oh, right.
No.
And what do you do then, or does it just not happen?
There are occasionally, and it's what people would say they dislike about our show, and also it's what most of our audience love most about our show.
There is no safety net, so often it will come crashing down. Well, not often, but it can come crashing down.
And when it does, they want us to succeed. They want us to get out of it. And whether or not that involves another character coming on stage or it involves a complete change of tact, breaking the routine, it's what they've come to watch. And when people come again, they really, really appreciate that kind of. We're always giving them this sense that this is quite difficult.
Yeah, you can see it in our eyes.
It could always go wrong.
Well, if it actually has, then they realise that, presumably.
Well, exactly. But
half the fun is us trying to dig ourselves out of it.
The key really is that going wrong is only funny if you come out of it on a higher level than you went in.
And you've taken the audience with you.
Yes,
Exactly. But you do that from the off, don't you? I mean, by engaging with people at the very beginning, you're also sort of buying their complicity.
Well, that's a really big part of the show, and it's something that we spent a long time on. When we were on stage when they come in, and we chat to them as they sit down, and we take props from them, and we talk
generally appealing.
Talk about what they do, and they are our friends by the time the show starts, and they really want us to do well,
How about timing? Because timing is very important here in Edinburgh. 2 minutes over and that's 60 quid or whatever. Yeah,
we've got that nailed.
Yeah.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, and it's
not just the band going da 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 and everyone walking off.
There were, in the first year, I have to admit, there were a couple of times when we'd get to 3 minutes before the end and go, better tie this story up. But no, we've really got it's rhythm, and because we do so many of these things before we come. We just feel feel how long we have a clock at the back of the stage, so we can see where we are in time, and people can go, we're about halfway through. Okay, it's time to stop introducing problems. It's time to start solving things. It's time to start.
This character needs to be resolved. This needs to be,
and you just get a feeling for where resolution should happen, and in the end, you
should all fall neatly into place.
And it almost always does.
Oh, beautiful synchronicity, I would say. Let me just very quickly, forgive me, look at my retro telephone.
No.
20 past.
Wow, that is retro.
It is, isn't it? But I can beat an assailant to death with it. So and it does what I need it to do, which is tell me the time and let me make telephone calls. But
absolutely.
Well, we've still got a couple of minutes if you're okay.
Yep.
But this isn't the only show you've got up here this year, is it? You're also doing another musical, a slightly more devised piece.
Yes, we're doing a brand new musical called Some Small Love Story, which is on at 9:30 in CECA every day, and it's a four-hander. There are four of us on stage, and Ed actually plays the piano in that, showing his multi-talented self. And it's very much not the improvised musical. It's two love stories intertwined. It's about kind of loss and about family.
Although it was written by Alex Wright, who was in the original cast of an improvised musical, and by Gavin Whitworth, who is obviously our musical director.
Musical director, rather.
Indeed.
Just belittled his role quite severely.
He plays the kazoo in the back.
Yeah.
That's it.
And it's doing really well. It's been nominated for an MTM Best Lyrics Award, and it's got a stage must-see.
Audience is very receptive, always crying.
Not on the way in, I hope.
It's one of the weirdest experiences, because it's a very sad show, and people come out and you speak to them afterwards, and they go, and you say, did you like it? And they say, no, it was amazing. And it's kind of this really mixed, like, we loved it, we loved the ride, but it's very sad. But people absolutely love it, and it's just gone down like
a
good thing. Up like a rubber
balloon.
So, is that likely to go anywhere else?
Yes.
Do you have hopes for it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is
Alex is already. Is there a website? Well, it's the Flanagan Collective, which I believe is flanagancollective.co.uk.
Google it.
Yeah, Flanagan Collective. And yes, it will definitely be going elsewhere. Perfect Pitch musicals might be looking at it, and there are definitely plans to tour it anyway, regardless. So look out for it in a city near you.
Well, I'll travel to the city in question if necessary then. Yeah. But how can people see the improvised musical?
Right, the improvised musical is on at 6 p.m. in C Main on Chambers Street every night for the rest of the festival. We finish on the 29th, that's our last performance. And you can get tickets from either C Main itself, or from any of the C satellite venues, or from the Fringe box office, or from the Fringe website. Yeah, really do come along and see it, and come along and see it more than once as well, so that you believe us.
Then you will believe us.
Well, just briefly, and to finish off, could you give me the names of one or two of your shows you've had this year so far in the run?
Yesterday was My Toes Invented Rock and Roll. We've had Revenge of the
foot tapper,
It was a foot tapper, a toe tapper.
Yeah,
toes. Everyone took
Bracken's toes invented rock and roll.
It was indeed. Revenge of the Killer Turkey, My Rusty Starship, and other many.
We've had orange juice in my cereal.
Orange juice on my cereal, I think, was the correct preposition.
With
in. You've got to be careful with getting the right. Otherwise,
you told.
we put. That's another really interesting thing. Very quickly, is that we put all of this stuff into our short-term memory because we have to remember character names and storylines and this and that and whatever, and it all goes into our short-term memory and it never gets transferred. So we come out after the show, and an hour later, someone will say, "Oh, I love that song," and we'll go, "What song?"
Who am I?
Yeah, incredible. It's incredible how the brain works.
And people can see some of your material on YouTube, can they?
Yes, YouTube. We are No Shoes Theatre, as we are on Facebook. So facebook.com/No Shoes Theatre, or youtube.com/No Shoes Theatre, or twitter.com/No Shoes Theatre.
Oh, I see a motif.
Yeah, our name. You can find us on any of those. And yeah, I've only put up one video so far from this year, but there are many more to come. So do look at our YouTube.
Some old favourites on there as well from 2009.
Yes, some really old favourites. Yeah.
And are you hoping to be here next year?
Yes.
Jolly good. Next year I'll try and come and see you again because I really enjoyed it when I saw you last time.
Good.
And I always enjoy talking to you.
And yeah, we get better every year. We've really stepped it up this year, and we hope to tour a bit during the coming year.
Are you?
Yeah, the trick really with this thing is just getting people together. I mean, because all these people are doing such amazing other stuff. Ollie's at Bristol Old Vic, and Nick gets acting gigs all the time, and Gav's just finishing at the RSAMD, and it's so.
And when you've got a room full of genii, it's difficult to get them in, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But yeah, hopefully we'll tour it probably next year, not this year, but before the Fringe, and next year it will be even better, even more synchronous.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Congratulations, and for all your rating so far. You've been identified as one of the 3 shows to see, I think.
By three musicals by 3 weeks,
yeah,
which was a lovely surprise when we got here.
Yeah, fantastic, and well deserved, if I may say.
Thank you.
And all power to your elbow.
Thank you.
You're listening to Musical Talk. So there you have it, No Shoes is the improvised musical. Now, how can you rate a show that you haven't seen? Well, I'm not going to do so, but I am going to tell you what Stephen Dutton said to me. He's actually seen all the improvised musicals in Edinburgh this year, and he asked me to tell Michael Slater, when he heard that I was going to be interviewing him, that the No Shoes version was by far and away the best. And indeed, he's subsequently written to me to say that the improvised musical by No Shoes Theatre was my favourite musical of the musical improv groups, because they have ability, and it is not overly polished, by which he means very politely, I think. It's not formulaic. 1 or 2 of the others are very, very smart and smooth, but they do rely on formula, in the sense that if you've seen one, the next one is often very similar, which isn't true for the No Shoes Theatre version. He further goes on to say in his email, they are quite often on the edge of making it work at times. This I find exciting, and what, for me, improv is about. So I'm going to take his review, plus my own experiences of seeing them a couple of years ago, and award them 5 stars. And if you don't like it, you can write to me and tell me why. But they are really very good. And whilst we're on Stephen's email, let me just tell you a couple of things he said about a couple of other musicals which he really enjoyed. He saw Sunday in the Park and said, well, this was okay, they got good reviews, but I found it slightly uninspiring and lacking conviction. Singing was better than acting. It might have been because the woman next to me had a bag of sweets she insisted on unwrapping throughout, or that I was expecting more from the RSAMD, that's the Royal Scottish Academy for Music and Dance, as I was really impressed with their Spring Awakening last year. Actually, you'll be hearing more about my thoughts on Sunday in the Park with George in a later episode. However, the Royal Scottish Academy also produced Wasted Love, also to be discussed in a future episode. But Stephen said, I really like this, very rude at times, but it had legs. Also in a later episode you'll hear a short interview with someone who was involved with Homemade Fusion, another musical. Stephen saw this, I didn't, and Stephen said, seemed like a great collection of cabaret songs with some fine performances of individual songs, rather than a carefully conceived and coherent musical. And that's true for a lot of musicals here at Edinburgh. Sometimes it's a series of songs which are not really forming an integrated score. And here's Stephen's thoughts on 4 more musicals, none of which I got a chance to see. He saw 9, and he described it as, although amateur, I did like their staging in the restricted space, basically keeping everyone on stage throughout, overlooking the action. It added to the drama and flow of the piece, and did not look cluttered either. Cabaret, excellent performance from this young Californian group, good energy, characterisation, and nicely put together in a very, very small space. The last 5 years, I have to tell you this musical's up in Edinburgh every year. And Stephen said, not the best I have seen, but generally nicely directed in the space, and an, for me, outstanding performance of A Miracle Would Happen. What I would say about this production is that it had clarity in places and an overall awareness of the story arc that other productions I've seen haven't quite managed, even though they may have had better performers and band. I liked that. And finally, Stephen talks about Some Small Love Story, which, as you heard, was created by the No Shoes Theatre Group. And Stephen said, my goodness, I was impressed with this. It needs work, but it could be a little gem of a musical. It's a little too Hallmark card at times, and I think this could be addressed, but nonetheless, I found it very moving, thoughtful, with lovely music. Although I could have done with more music, it has a lot of potential. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for writing and also sending me those views. Well, we're about to move into the last interview in this week's episode of Musical Talk. And remember, all the shows I've been discussing where there's been an interview are still on in Edinburgh at the time of broadcast of this episode, so you've got a chance to see them. And this last one, like so many of the ones I've discussed already, is a 5-star show. Not perhaps because of the intricacy of the plot, I think you'd have to say that it wasn't, but because of what it was attempting to do. It was a surprisingly experimental piece. It was an existential piece. It was a comedy. It was a specifically written musical. And get this, it was performed by 2 men dressed as women. In fact, they were performing as the Ugly Sisters from Cinderella, who have left the world of Cinderella to go into the real world. This next interview, I think, is one of my highlights of the whole time in Edinburgh. I had such affection for the show, which is why I've given it 5 stars. And now I've met them, I have great affection for Derek and David, who perform as the Ugly Sisters in Uglies Do Edinburgh. Let's hear my interview with David and Derek, or, if you prefer, Fanny and Annie. You get a bit of both in both cases.
Hi, I'm David Kent and I play the gorgeous Fanny in Uglies Do Edinburgh.
And I'm Derek Walker and I play the equally gorgeous Annie in Uglies Do Edinburgh.
Actually, I think Annie's the meaner out of the 2 of us, isn't she?
I think Annie is a little bit misunderstood, but she does boss Fanny about quite a bit, doesn't she?
Fanny just likes eating cake.
Yeah, Fanny's kind of not quite the full ticket, I don't think.
Oh, how dare you!
Well, dear, I speak as I find.
Now, tell us just a little bit of what the show's about for our listeners.
Well, Derek and I met last year when we were doing... we were both cast as Ugly Sisters in...
Against time, if I
may. Absolutely, of course.
He's gorgeous.
He is, he's lovely. We could chat to him all day.
Anyway, we were in Luton, waiting in between acts, between going on and talking. We were wondering about what would happen to Cinderella's Ugly Sisters after the end of the panto.
Yes.
So, and that's how it all started, really,
wasn't it? Because we sort of felt that the Ugly Sisters would get very bored in Cinderella's palace, wouldn't they? They would get very tired of being nice.
Oh, for heaven's sake, it's all about Cinderella, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So they decide one day, don't they, to go on the interweb and Google castles, because they think wherever there's a castle, there's got to be princes.
Are you going to give away the entire
No, I'm just
show?
setting it up, darling, setting it up. And so they Google, and of course Edinburgh pops up as having a castle, so they decide to head north to Edinburgh.
Yes. And we've tried really hard. It's a new story with is it 6 songs?
6 songs.
New original songs. But what we've tried to do is to be true to the spirit of panto. So we've tried to incorporate as many of the traditional old hoary jokes that you love and expect.
Are you spelling hoary?
Oh, you cheeky thing, Thos. And we've got as much audience participation as we can get, as we can squeeze in there.
It's a proper. It has all the tropes.
No,
we wanted. We set out, didn't we? We said that's what we wanted to do with it, was to make it as panto an experience as possible. So there's lots of singing, there's lots of songs, there's lots of costume changes. So
too many costume changes.
Yeah, possibly.
Thank you, Derek.
There's a few quick costume changes.
What is it? 7 costume changes in the space of an hour.
That's pretty good going.
Pretty good going.
Yes.
We've just about got the hang of it, haven't we?
Yes, I think there's only once when I've leapt on stage and forgotten to do myself up properly. Yeah, well, that was quite exciting for everybody, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure in a good way, but yes, quite exciting.
It's all about the backlighting as well.
Exactly. Well, exactly. Absolutely.
But it is actually, seriously. I tell you one of the things I really liked about it. I've actually described it to someone else in a positive light as saying it's like pantomime, but sort of the live and uncut album, if you like, because you've decontextualised the Ugly Sisters. I mean, you've got there is a narrative, there is this pantomime, but you've taken it away from the fairy tale. It's a brand new story.
Yes.
So it's almost like saying, here are these 2 characters. Let's see how they work in a version of the real world.
Yes, absolutely.
Rather than a version of a fairy tale world. And that's actually a really interesting thing that you're doing there, if you don't mind me saying. Because it turns out to be a massive success. You really can. Forgive me, the Ugly Sisters bring their own context.
Yes. I mean, I think that's the fun of it for us, wasn't it? Once we'd created the show, we sort of realised that there was so much more you could do with it.
Well, I'm interested now, the challenge for us, I think, as writers, when we decide what happens next to Annie and Fanny,
I hope it is a saga. I do.
I think
I sense it is,
ongoing.
but I actually think that decontextualization is the challenge, because we're now one step away from it. And we're very careful to make lots of references back to the story and to Cinderella.
Yes.
So, I think that's going to be the key. It's going to whatever happens next to them, and we've got plans for them working in a job centre, haven't we? And,
all sorts of.
I think Fanny would like to be an air hostess.
I could see Fanny being an air hostess. So the trouble is that the poor passengers would never get anything to eat because she would eat it all before they got to it.
So there's lots of ideas, but it is going to be exactly that. It's because, or maybe, I think the question for us will be: do Annie and Fanny become characters separate from being Ugly Sisters, or do they remain in with those roots?
Well, I tell you what you've got already, and I'm really interested to hear you say that, because I was talking about this afterwards with David Kingsmill from Hitler, and odd sentence that is when you sit down and analyse it.
Yes.
And we were talking about actually the real one of the. I mean, you're very funny, you're very talented, you can do all the singing, but actually there's a real character basis to this. You're not grotesques, even though, forgive me, you might be described by some as having painted yourselves up in that way. I know it's outrageous.
Cheeky.
But you're not. There's actually a really interesting sisterly bond, and if you're looking at it from psychologically, it's actually because obviously you're ostensibly on the pole looking for your princess here in Edinburgh.
Yes.
But of course, actually, it's your relationship together which is the strongest thing in your lives, which is probably keeping you away from getting a relationship individually.
Yes.
So actually, there's a good psychological bit of meat on the bone, if you pardon the expression. I think.
Well, I have
you like
to
your meat on the bone.
We do. We love a bit of meat on the bone, don't we, Fanny? All the time,
you have to
dear.
nibble on the rind
oh yeah, love it.
I have to say, though, there's a real delight for me as a writer to hear you say that, because it is something that I know when we were writing it, we were very interested in their characters and what defines them as individuals. I mean, again, we don't ever have the opportunity to talk about it like this, really.
No,
do we?
Because, we don't. No.
And it's lovely that people can appreciate it on the different levels. And again, that's partly deliberate. I mean, we were very careful to write it so that it would appeal, as the best pantos do, to adults and children on completely different levels.
Yes.
Different people laugh at different times, which
exactly.
is always fabulous. That's when you know you've hit the button.
Exactly. And we're actually quite prudish when it comes down to it. I
We
think
are very well. We've worked this out, haven't
Yes.
we? We've worked because we keep saying that we would.
we don't like the F word.
No.
Or any other words that actually I'm not sure that I know any more than the F word. Do you, dear?
I think I might know one or two. Yes.
Oh, really?
But I don't choose to use them.
They're all in the Radio Times crossword.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. You've got it. That's right.
And
Absolutely.
so that's partly the challenge.
But I
is
think,
writing
the
something that-
wonderful thing I think for both of us also was when we met, we just instantly connected, and I think that comes through in the writing, doesn't it? I think that there is a real connection with us as people, as actors.
Yes.
And I think we enjoy performing together so much, don't we? And we know that if things go wrong in the show, not that they ever go wrong, do they, dear?
Go wrong?
We kind of pull each other out of them
When
and
they
we
go
pull it
differently
through.
right.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
But I mean, is it true that you only met last year when you were?
Yeah,
Because that does seem amazing to me. Because you feel like a seasoned double act to me. I feel, if you just said not that you're old enough, but if you'd worked together for 20 years.
No, I think that's
I would have said, oh well, that's how you got
Oh
this immediate.
no, we're not old enough to have worked together for 20 years,
dear.
are we?
Oh, absolutely. I'm
20
in the
minutes.
spring of my life, dear. Spring of my life. No, we
I think that's
the
one
moment
of those,
we met.
Yes,
we
it's one
clicked.
of those really happy coincidences,
Yes.
and actually, because it's a combination of lots of things. Actually, when you have a working relationship like this, because it's not only how well you get on as people, and it's not only where you both come from in terms of the what you're trying to communicate,
Yes.
but also your work ethic. I mean, one of the reasons that we were both cast in Cinderella last year was because we both arrived an hour early for the audition.
Oh, well,
So they
they
sort
are.
of paired us together, didn't they?
And
So it was
yes, and in fact, they were only looking for one ugly sister at
They
the
were,
time.
yes. Really?
But when they saw us
together, they decided
they
to
cast
completely
us,
change
yes.
things.
That's a cut price Cinderella, if you don't mind me saying, with an ugly sister.
Oh no,
No,
they
they'd
already
already
had one
cast.
cast.
They'd cast one ugly sister, so
I
they
see.
were on the day looking
Yes.
for one ugly
right.
sister.
Oh, well, that goes
And then
to testament to your
we
relationship.
went in and stupidly without a script.
I
And
seem
just-
to remember it was your idea to go in without the script, and then you, within 3 lines, completely messed up. So it was down to
know.
Muggins here to rescue the situation.
I rescued us beautifully, darling, all the way through. All the way through.
How have you? I mean, are these the sisters Fanny and Annie? Are they variants on the ugly sisters you were doing then, or have you started again from fresh with your relationship in terms of the character you're portraying?
I think one of the challenges for me. Okay, now I am really going to sound really up myself as an actor in panto. Is particularly with Ugly Sisters actually, and I've played a couple with a couple of different people. Is that it's rare that you get a script where there's any definition of character whatsoever. So, and I think for me that's always difficult. So, although I suppose there was the basis of a relationship
Yeah,
in
I
terms
think
of
there
Derek
was.
and me as people and
Yeah.
as actors. We were rather conscious of building that in this piece.
So there was a canvas, and you two, as it were, sort of made it up.
Yes.
Yes.
But
And
by
what-
made it up, I mean as in sort of, developed. I don't just
Yes.
mean I don't mean ad-libbed it. You created from
Yes.
the foundations of a
basically.
great master.
Yes.
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 And how, when you were sitting down to sort of write this, I mean, what is your creative, in terms of script and story development, and choosing what jokes are going to work in this sort of non-fairy tale context now here in Edinburgh?
We had
How do you develop it? I mean,
we had a plan. We had a
Yeah,
general
we-
arc of the
arc
story.
of
So
where
we
it
knew
was
that they
going.
were going to be invited
dam with
to
a
a
plan.
party, and that they knew that they were going to have a and then we trawled our memories for all of the panto jokes that we'd ever uttered. So we started off with a skeleton.
yes.
And then
in the cupboard.
yes.
Well, we were basically.
Well,
in the
and then
cupboard,
actually, looking back now, it was incredibly easy because I think we just put. I mean, Derek has an amazing talent for ad-libbing, and he's a never-ending source of characters. You can't be in a conversation with him for half an hour before 10 different people pop up, and so that was really useful because I would just say, okay, so what would we say at this point?
Yes, and then we would brainstorm basically, and I would get up and walk around and and babble for 10 minutes, and then we'd find something, wouldn't we, to work with.
And then we'd read it back, and then
but it was easy, actually. It came together really, really well.
And that means you really do
quickly.
inhabit your characters then, doesn't it? Because presumably you are ad-libbing from the source of who you're being.
Yes.
I think now we have very clear ideas about who Annie and Fanny are.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even when we're out in the street, aren't we? We're babbling away to one another, and I'm usually insulting Fanny for something, and so we do definitely inhabit these characters and know
Sisterly
these characters.
bickering.
Oh
Yes,
yeah, I mean
exactly.
they absolutely love each other.
Do they?
I think they do.
Oh, I do.
I mean, absolutely. I think there's a great connection there that they absolutely Yes.
I'm not
Whilst
sure.
Annie is, I always think of Annie as the older one, even though in real life,
See,
of course.
I guess we're actually playing it all out now because I can't get a word in edgeways. I don't know if you've noticed.
I've barely said anything since we've got here. I've had a nice sit down. But no,
on a pole.
No, I think there's a great bond.
You're a very cheeky young man,
He
if
is
I
a
may
very
say
cheeky
so.
young
It's
man.
horizontal.
You have a strange relationship with bollards, don't you?
I do.
dear?
I love a good bollard. Me and bollards have a great relationship. Yes, I keep bumping into them all the time.
Yes, and it's been an amazing. It's been quite an experience coming up here, actually, and doing this. And one of the things that is, and I'm sure many of the performers that you speak to will have the same sort of experience. Is there's two sets of difficulties, really, I would say, or not challenges. There's everything as an artist and as an actor around your piece. But you've also then got laid on top of that everything as a producer. Because even if you're not actually named the producer, everybody here who is working has a sense of how successful are we being, how many people, how many bums on seats have we got, how many stars have we got in this latest review.
Everyone's pushing the production even if they aren't. Yes, I see.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's, I think that's both. That is challenging and it's interesting, and it requires, for me, an awful lot of what we would call in the NLP world, that's neuro-linguistic programming, for those of you that don't know.
Thank you, dear. Thank you for pointing that out.
State management. You know, I have to switch my head from being, okay, now we're at the point where if there's one person in the audience, if there's 20, actually that's kind of irrelevant because now we just have to go out and be and do the show.
Do the show, yes, absolutely.
And we've had. Oh, I'm talking a lot now.
No, it's fine.
We've had absolutely lovely audiences.
Well, that's my next question, because in the street I see children running up to you, which is always the right direction, I think.
I think we've been very pleased with the reaction that we've got out on the street, haven't we? We've been very pleased about the buzz that we've created. I think
in
on
the
streets.
show, there's only been a few. Again, one of the things that we've learned, there's some marketing things that we may change. Were Annie and Fanny to come to the Fringe next year?
Well, I do hope they do.
I'll
have at least one in the audience, I can tell you. Probably more than once.
I think one of the things is. Actually, I don't regret this, but very early on, we were asked to do a charity appearance, which we will be at the Newtown Bar on Sunday.
Coming up.
Coming up. It's just it's a 15 or 20 minute slot for their charity of the year, which I'm not sure what it is, but it's very worthy, I know, because we decided to do it. However, because of that, I think Scots Gay, which is the main gay publication for Scotland,
and a big reviewer here, of course, yes.
And a big reviewer here. They put us, first of all, in their top 30 gay shows to see. Now, we're not a gay show.
No.
And I think they misunderstood the publicity with that. Obviously, they didn't read it very carefully. And they
also been known
and
in
they thought we were...
organisations.
No, surely not.
It's not me. Others.
And I think they thought we were a drag act.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that we've had loads of people from the gay community coming and hating it. Quite the reverse, except the Scots Gay reviewer left halfway through and slated the show.
Yeah.
So that's or I should say slated the show reviewed it as a children's show.
Which it isn't. It's a proper pantomime. Forgive me, I'm stepping in here because I get excited at this because I get angry at it. So many people say pantomime is a children's thing. It is not. It's a family thing.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
If you're not getting the adults, they're not going to come again next time. And they pay for the tickets.
Yes, of course.
I want to have. I'm not a parent. It'll come as no surprise. But.
Oh, I don't know. I think you'd make a rather good
would
father
love. I
figure.
could just see him tottering along, can't you, Fanny, with his children tottering.
I can't carry big bags like that.
No. It's no good looking at you then, dear, is it?
Oi!
Sorry, that was Annie talking.
It was Annie,
sorry.
wasn't it?
I'll go
away.
back to being Derek. Sorry.
I was going to say something really meaningful about marketing. Because we had a big dilemma as to whether to market ourselves as theatre or family, and we chose theatre. And I'm not sure. What we have attracted is our audiences. We do have some families, but the predominant audience member, I would say, is they're older people and they're couples and they're grown ups. Yeah. They're grown ups.
Well, as indeed I was.
Exactly.
And I still think I am. I don't think I've regressed too dreadfully.
So, I mean, again, the wonderful thing about the genre is that it's designed so that you can adapt to your audience. Yeah. So
you can take it up a bit, you can bring it down.
Yes, absolutely.
That's very good. It's got flexibility built in, really.
Yes.
So, it's a question for next year as to whether we'd be family or not. I mean, because again, you've got the issue that you were just raising, is that we're not a children's show. We are a family show, and for goodness' sake, we do have some rather cheeky things in there, don't we,
do have
dear?
some very cheeky things, dear. Yes.
But children are very good at picking up when something's funny without necessarily always knowing what the funniness is.
Yes.
And so I always, that does. You're only dirty if you've got a dirty mind.
Of course. Yes. I mean, it's.
So I had to have all the jokes explained to me.
I don't believe that for a moment.
There was no filth. I mean, you're an absolutely clean show, but you have just a little bit of innuendo, which is and I don't mean innuendo in that heavy innuendo. I mean, light. When I say end of the pier, saucy McGill postcards, I mean in absolutely the most positive sense.
Yes.
I like the fact that I was drawing things from it that other people weren't, and the children were getting things from it, and.
So what you're trying to tell us is you do have a dirty mind.
Oh yeah, I'm filthy. well, those of us who don't do anything have to do a lot of time thinking. So it's all theoretical for me, you see.
So you've been to see a lot of musical, because musical theatre is your thing, isn't it?
It is indeed, it's my bag.
So you've been doing a lot of visiting musical shows up here. And what's been... Oh, am I allowed to say what's your favourite? Well, this could go off the record, couldn't it?
I can give you a 5-star show, which is actually on at the same venue as you, which is Miracle's Short Notice.
Yes, I think we saw that it had got the 5 stars.
Beautifully crafted new musical. And that's my pick of Edinburgh this year, actually, because it's a. There's lots of great stuff this year. There's also a lot of less great stuff, but it was. Because it was crafted, it was brand new, and it's done with aplomb. I thought this for me. There's lots of stuff up here which has been done before. There's a very good Sunday in the Park with George.
Yes.
But it's a production of a show that's been around for a long time, and it's a very nicely made production, but it's not directorially very exciting. Whereas this was something brand new, and I thought so very exciting. Yeah. But I don't mind telling you both. I mean, you may not necessarily want this, but from my point of view, I think you're a 5-star show. I loved every second of it, and I would genuinely come and see you again.
Ooh.
I'll write that down for you.
Can you?
Yes, I certainly
That would
will.
be wonderful.
Yeah. Yes, that's tickled our fancy already, Fanny, hasn't it?
Right.
Already?
So now what should we talk about? We can talk for the next hour. You've just bought yourself another hour of our time.
Yes,
dear.
you've got us interested.
Probably got to go in about 5 minutes.
All right,
but
fine.
Can I just ask a couple of final questions?
Yes, of course you can.
The score, however, did you write the music yourself? Did you write the songs? Oh,
yes.
Jolly good.
That's down to me, I'm afraid.
He's a very clever man.
That opening number in particular is a real sort of rouser.
We love it, don't we? It is, and we found that, haven't we? It really gets people in the mood for that. It gives them just the taste of what it's all going to be about, and it's a lovely way to start.
I mean, interestingly enough, my other hat, or it's really part of the same hat, really, is as a singer-songwriter, and I've just come back from the International Cabaret Conference at Yale in the States, and had an absolutely wonderful time there. So
Yale is the key to success, is it not?
No! Boom. I was asking for that, wasn't I?
You were. Yes.
But
I do apologize.
So yes. And for me, again, it was interesting to be writing to a brief, really. And one of the songs I deliberately wrote to be the most annoying song in the history of songs.
Which is?
We're really bad. Na 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 na. Oh yes, it all comes flooding back to you.
Oh yeah. No, I've been having some very expensive therapy, but you're right. Yes. Now, how can people see Uglies?
Right. Well, we're at the Griffin venue at the Point Hotel, which is on Bread Street. Yes.
At 5 o'clock every day apart from Sunday the 21st. We get a day off.
You have it all down pat.
I do have it off pat. Yes.
Tickets can be
Well,
bought.
it's the Sabbath. You'll be on your knees.
Oh, well. Oh, I don't know what you mean, dear. I really don't. We're good, clean living girls, aren't we, Fanny?
Back to where you can get the tickets.
Oh, yes. Oh, that whole thing. Let's go on.
You can buy tickets on the door at the venue. But also, I believe there's a scurrilous rumour going round that there are tickets at the half-price hut.
Half-price hut? Surely not, dear.
I think there might be. So you might want to scurry out. We have special deals for families. We have family price.
Special family.
And I think we are launching a super special deal for Edinburgh residents, actually, from this weekend. And that is, not only are the family tickets already discounted, but they will be half price.
Really?
Starting on Monday. Yes.
Right, yes.
And do you have a website?
We do.
What's our website, dear?
What's our website? We've got various ones, haven't we, dear?
Goodness me. Ugliesdo.com. It's the only website you have to remember, dear. We've got our blog.
I know, but I get confused here with your blog, because you love your blog, don't you? You're blogging all the time, dear, aren't you?
Always on the blog, yes.
Ugliesdo.com, you can find our video,
yes,
our blog, our reviews.
There's lovely photos.
Photos of me and you.
What do you mean of you? It's me mostly, dear.
Anyway.
They only want to see me.
And there was something else I wanted to say about. Oh, and we're making rather a collection of videos on YouTube, actually.
Oh, jolly good.
So what you need to do is to do you Google when you're on YouTube? I don't know what you do.
If I've got a hand free,
I just think you.
Type in.
Not that sort of come along.
Not that sort of videos at all, dear. I don't know what you're expecting. Go into YouTube and just plug in Uglies Do Edinburgh,
and it'll find us a treat, won't it?
Yes,
you'll be blown away.
There's our
send off.
There's our clip on the send off. There's our clip from the Guardian newspaper.
Yes, the Guardian.
There's our what do we call it? Our pre thing.
Yes. I've seen us having a lovely tea party.
Yes, and I believe also we've been videoed. Oh, I was hypnotised on the Royal Mile, wasn't I?
You were, dear. Not well enough, I'm afraid.
And also, we're down here on the Royal Mile from 2 o'clock every day, so come and say hello.
Yes.
Have a sweetie on us.
Glamour magnets.
We are glamour magnets. We bring sunshine wherever we go, don't we, Fanny?
We do.
Polarity dancing.
Oh, exactly.
Seriously, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you both.
Oh, bless you.
And thank you so much for a fabulous 5-star show.
Thank you very much for saying that. Yes, woo.
You're listening to Musical Talk at the Edinburgh Fringe. What a lovely interview that was. It was such fun to conduct. And I don't mind telling you, and you'll probably hear in the outtakes, that halfway through that interview, some tourists turned up and asked us the way to another venue. When they realised that they were talking to two men dressed up as grotesque pantomime dames. Sorry, Derek. Sorry, David. One of them was unable to speak for the next few minutes as she was being given advice. And then at the end, just as we were finishing, another person ran up and requested to have their photograph taken. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Musical Talk. Do go along and see these shows if you can. Remember that last one, Uglies Do Edinburgh, is also a 5-star show. A jolly, classy piece. And it's just time to mention a few other shows which fall into the category of musical, which you should really catch if you can. These are sort of on the cusp of musical theatre. The first is called Sammy J and Randy in Ricketts Lane. Sammy J is a fantastic Australian comic who I've been following for many years. He comes to Britain for the Fringe and I've always found him very entertaining and funny. And every few years he does a Muppet-style musical. He did one called The Enchanted Wood, which I believe is available on DVD. And now he's doing Ricketts Lane. which is very funny. If you're a fan of Avenue Q, you'll get the idea. Pop along and see that. Then there's a truly marvellous piece of drama about musical theatre called Black Slap. It used to be known as Black Slap and Sequins, and it's set in the dressing rooms before an evening performance of the Black and White Minstrel Show in 1965. And before you say, oh dear, how can he be talking about that? This show is in no way an apology for the Black and White Minstrel Show. In fact, it's a very, very clever investigation into assumed prejudice, unthinking prejudice, and in no way suggests that the Black and White Minstrel Show was a good idea, but does take a very fair look at the social situation at the time and gives you a real insight into how theatre and variety worked. And there's a special interview with the writer of that, the very talented Paul Haley, coming up in a future episode of Musical Talk. He really has something to say on the matter, and it's fascinating. And you'll also be surprised, as I was, to learn exactly how cutting edge in terms of theatricality the Black and White Minstrel Show in the 1960s really was. So much so that many of the innovations that were introduced by its direction and production teams are still in place in London's West End and indeed on Broadway today. So look out for that in the future. But go and see the play before it ends its run at the end of the Fringe. Something rather different again. There's a very good comic by the name of David Morgan who's done a stand-up act called Triple Threat. And yes, it's about musical theatre. Go along and see him. He's very funny. And he made a very hilarious joke about Andrew Lloyd Webber's soon-to-be-defunct Love Never Dies, pilfering songs from his own earlier catalogue. And if you're a Musical Talk fan, you'll know precisely what he's getting at. And finally, go along and see The Hot Mikado, produced by the Durham University Group, who did such a good job with The Wild Party last year. That runs until the end of the Fringe. I managed to catch that. And if you're a bit unsure about Gilbert and Sullivan, go along and see this, because it's similar and different. Well, that's all I've got to say on the Edinburgh Fringe this week. We've got several more episodes to come, and I really hope that you'll be able to listen to those and get a sense of what it's like. And perhaps, if you've never been, start to decide on going next year. Don't forget, next year's a great time to be going to the Fringe, because it's a big year of celebration in Britain. We've got the Diamond Jubilee of Her Majesty the Queen. That's going to be in June and July. Then we have the Olympics. That's going to be in July and August. And then finally, the Edinburgh Fringe. Why not come over for months and months and months and just enjoy everything? And perhaps meet a few people from Musical Talk. Well, that's it for this week. I'll speak to you soon with more Fringe-related fun. Goodbye. This episode of Musical Talk, presented and edited by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2011, except for the music, where the copyright persists with the creators. And now for some Edinburgh Fringe 2011 Outtalks. The Oxford Gargoyles. Do you mind if I'm going to be very rude and ask you if I could have a level first of all? Is that okay?
That's fine. Yep. Hello, my name is James. Hello.
Splendid, that's about right. Forgive me, I'm going to do that horrible thing where I look at the gauge so you'll see a lot at the top of my head.
Fine.
However, that's probably a much better feature than my face, so you're fine. What I was going to do, if that's okay, is ask you actually your name and your involvement with the show. You mentioned the show. Then we'll just take it through in conversation. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's great.
Did you? You know each other. I mean, I don't know if you'll have much cause to be involved, but would you care to? I mean, if we're happy to make it.
If something crops up, I'll chip in.
Yeah, feel free.
Yeah, I don't want you to feel excluded, Archer.
No, not at all.
Because you know each other and we know each other, so the only link left is this one. So.
Here we are. Yeah.
It's not an expose. So if you say anything where you're halfway through a sentence and you suddenly realise you've libelled everyone you've ever met, or I think the cuts are crap. Oh, whatever. Yeah. Don't say, can we take that out? I will take that out. As I say, this is a good thing. I'm going to ask you for levels first of all. I might have to ask you to budge up a bit. But you do know each other, so that's all right. Oh my word! No, it'll be the beginning of a real friendship. The way I normally start is I ask everyone I'm speaking to say who they are and what their involvement in the show is. Don't forget to say the name of the show, people sometimes forget. And then I'll just ask you questions and we'll take it from there. Is that okay? And conversationally, I would have thought about 10 minutes, but if it goes on a bit, as long as that's not causing you trouble. So they sometimes have a sort of natural narrative arc, if you like.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Brilliant. Now, is that all right?
That was absolutely brilliant.
So.
Thank you.
Have you a piece of paper?
Yeah, I've got my diary.
You got your diary? Yeah.
I was in a canvas roof tent earlier on down in George Square, listening to Lily Lascala singing. She sings beautifully, and she sings all the standards. She's lovely. And the rain came down at a pelt, so it was like we were being fired upon in a bomb zone. And then bloody Harriers went over.
Have you been seeing lots of other musicals?
I'm seeing 45 shows in 8 days.
Wow.
But not all musicals. But, there's the 5 stars definitely.
Brilliant, thank you.
And you can use that immediately if that's any good to you.
Yeah,
and I've written down here, the quotation I was going to give you was a cast iron comedy musical hilariously done. Can that be of any good to you?
That would be
comedy musical.
That's brilliant. What's the review? What will it
you
actually
won't read
be?
it from my handwriting.
What's the publication that it's actually for?
Better write that down, because I would normally give you a card, but unfortunately I ran out today, and I've got to go back to my pokey digs to give you something. I'm Foss Ribbits, and it's at MusicalTalk. Oh, that's me. That's short Thomas. MusicalTalk.
Like that? Musical?
It's RIBBITS, as in rabbits, but with a... This is a perfect case of, this is a very boring aside, the perfect case of nominative determinism. Ribbits actually comes from rabbits, and rabbits doesn't mean rabbit, as in we understand it. It actually means advisor to the Witan, which basically means civil servant, which is actually what I do in real life.
Oh, wow, okay.
And then in the summer months,
then I escape and have a jolly good time. Now, was that all right?
That was lovely.
Thank you.
Yes.
I hope it's only a vignette, but I'm keen to hear about it from your point of view, and also to get the name out there so that people can follow it,
perfect.
even after Edinburgh.
Is it digital? Is this digital?
Yes, it's available on the website, which is on the card I gave you, and also from iTunes. And the episode's stay out forever, so it's a case of, as long as we last. We've run 5 years so far.
Right.
We were early in the field, and we've kept going. So people should be able to pick it up from now on.
And where are you based?
Well, I actually live in London.
But you're up at the Edinburgh Festival.
Indeed.
Yes.
I do 8 days and 45 shows, and then I go home and roll on the carpet in agony. I'm going to ask you if you don't mind actually drawing a little bit closer together. You are close and intimate workers, so I heard that was... well, I assumed you were.
We know.
Yeah. What I'm going to do, very simple start, I'm going to ask you to say your name and your involvement with the show. Then we'll just take it conversationally from there. And one of the things I'd like to do is two things, actually, is obviously to advertise the show right up at the beginning and again at the end. And then I'd quite like to talk about synchronicity and how you, bearing in mind you're improvising off the top of your head, how you get into the rhythms with each other. But if it takes us anywhere else conversationally, it takes us where it takes us. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful, thank you. This is not an expose, so if you say anything halfway through the conversation that you said, I've libelled my agent, or and you'd rather I didn't, I just say I will take it out. This is not an expose. As I say.
Sure.
I'm going to ask you. I'm going to hold it there if you want an expression. Because I'm going to be looking here. You will see my horrible bald head as I look down a lot. If that's okay. So that's just.
It's a lovely bald head.
It's a big old bald head. I'll tell you that. Yes, I turned into a Belisha Beacon at 23, and I've not really looked back. Right. Please do, yes.
Oh, sorry.
No, so I can edit this. I'll edit you out. I'm sorry.
We're being interviewed here. No. Have a sweetie.
I just want to ask for the Mannequin's clothes. Is it here? Oh, thank you.
I have no idea. Because the only place you really need to know where are our flyers, dear? Where are our flyers, dear? So we're not being any help to you at all.
No. There you go. That's the trouble with asking two ladies in costume.
Oh my God! Look at
there is actually usually a man outside in costume, so it's on this side. But I can't tell you where, I'm afraid. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
One of the gentlemen in red t-shirts might be able to tell you, because they're sort of stewards for the street.
Yeah, they told us it was quite to hear with this. I don't know, arms. I don't know.
No, it's not. This is the council chambers and the interview sofa for Annie and Fanny.
So thank you, Annie.
Thank you, darling.
Our show's that way, dear. See you later.
See you later. Bye.
Sorry, all for the outtakes.
Yeah. So did you carry on recording?
Oh yeah, I
Good.
just
Yeah, no,
but,
fine.
But I will chop that a bit out. So don't
Well,
worry.
Yes,
or
it'd be a bit
use
random,
bits of
wouldn't
it
it?
if there's anything funny in there.
Well, as I say, I do actually do a little outtakes thing at the end, normally, so it probably will. Normally that and Lift speaking to me or last-minute calls. I'm interviewing someone, and then the tannoy in whichever theatre I'm in goes 1 minute until blah, you know. Anyway. No, is that all right for you both?
That's
is there anything that you need
gorgeous.
taking out or putting in? Or
Well, if you took him out, there'd be nothing
No,
left.
I don't think there's anything that
No,
you would be. I mean, you'll be the judge of what makes the most entertaining.
most of that's
listening.
pretty good. I hope you didn't mind my being a little bit.
No,
No,
you
not
don't
at
mind
all.
anything,
It's
dear.
great.